What's up, Knights of Degen? It's Wednesday night. I know you're used to me doing this on Thursdays, but we had a special guest. We had Mr. Ian Cummings available to come do an interview with us. And you know what? You know me, guys. All right. I love everything, but I figured this is a conversation that your digital dude when it comes to Pony Zook and your in real life slash digital dude Doughboy made the most sense to bring on the show. What up, Zook? What up,
What
Doug?
up? What up? What up? How we doing tonight, Jigga?
Good, man. Hey, you guys, I got to tell you, I'm going to say thanks because I get to be the guy behind the scenes today, just enjoying the interview, enjoying the show, and you guys actually have to work. So,
Yeah, no Rangers on tonight, so my night is free. I'm happy to take over the night shift with Doughboy and Ian tonight. Um, Honestly, we're just gonna hang out, watch some races. I have the photo finish beta up on my other screen, and I see some of these races filling live. The Discord did really great today. I posted in there.
That's
Let's
awesome.
see how many we can fill between the 8 and 9 o'clock hour when we hang on with Ian. And they did. They filled a lot of these races. The first one's coming up in 12 minutes. So we'll just go back and forth between
Nice.
watching this really, really cool and pleasantly looking game with asking Ian some questions based on as Doughboy comes at it from in real life racing and kind of where I come from it, where my only experience is with Zed and with other virtual horse racing games. So we'll just fire away some thoughts, some questions. If you're in the chat and you got any
Oh, I will
questions for
be.
Ian, he'll be very receptive to answer those. So just keep firing away and we'll do our best to go through as many of them as possible.
That's awesome. And don't forget to ask him about when they have the jockeys on the horses, can we get a replica of me? I'm the shortest dude here. I'd make a perfect jockey. Man, well, guys, enjoy the night. Let me hand it over to you, and I'll check in with you guys in a bit.
Take it easy, Jake.
Thank you, sir. All right, so
Yeah,
I say
honestly,
we just
is it really work if you're having fun though? Like, isn't that the rule?
no, and this is what I'm excited for. Like I'm excited, one, to have a conversation with him. Two, I'm just excited to watch the races with him. The aesthetic pleasingness of these races, and again, it looks different than Zed, so I'm getting still used to it. How we attack things is from the entertainment and calling races standpoint. So watching the different ways that these horses move is just very, very, very excited from that standpoint. I still couldn't tell you how long a furlong, 2 furlong, 3 furlong is. I'm still getting my rhythm with those.
It's
But
super simple.
that they turn, they move around each other. From a actually calling the race standpoint, there's a lot more that you can do with it. So I'm very
I think
excited.
they have meters listed on there as well, but the
They
easiest
do.
reference
They do.
is easiest reference is 8 furlongs is 1,600 meters.
Is 11
And then
furlongs 22? I think so.
11 furlongs is a mile and 3/8. So let me see. Mile and a quarter would have been it would have been 19 furlongs, I think.
All right.
Because 2,000 is a mile and a quarter. Yeah.
Beautiful.
I don't know, dude. I'm half asleep. I'm trying to wake up. Let's get into this.
All right, let's do it. With a man who really needs no further introduction. If you're here, you've heard him talk many times before. Recently, he was in Discord doing the AMA. He's the CEO of this whole game and company that we're here to talk about tonight. Our buddy Ian. How you doing, brother?
Great, guys. How are you?
Good,
Thanks
good.
for having me on. Cheers.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Thanks for
cheers.
your time.
I got a coffee, but cheers.
Mm.
I'm excited to hang out and get the chance to talk with you. Like I was saying before you came on. I like having these conversations also with the ability to play the game or hang out and watch the game at the same time. So actually, I'll just bring it up now and we can hold it here. I have these beta races, which, as you know, and me and Doughboy will attest to, have been a great success in our eyes. We'll bounce around and we'll eventually get back to starting from the beginning of this whole story. But let's start from over just the past few days. What's your reception been towards what people have thought about beta up to this point?
Yeah, I mean, we've been thrilled for sure. You never know. Like, obviously, we did feel like it was really getting tight and looking good. Made a bunch of games before, and this one was feeling like pretty special. Like it had a little bit of that, we call it the flow, where you kind of get stuck where you want to do one more, and part of that's the timing of like it's just long enough to wait. You want to see what's going on. You have enough time to go dig in and sort of try and learn something, try and find another horse, try and get it ready. And so that part to me was starting to feel pretty sticky and feel pretty good. But I mean, to be honest, like we released on last Friday. We were supposed to release 2 weeks prior to that, and then like every day, we didn't tell anyone that, but internally our milestones were supposed to come well before that, and just new stuff popped up every day, and it was I don't want to say a slog. We don't really like crunch like I did back in the old days where I slept at the office at EA Sports or whatever. But it was tough, and so it was one of those things where it was like, geez, are we ever going to get this right? I mean, the day before we were supposed to go live, nothing worked at all, and then the day like last Thursday, none of the races were showing. Not, like we play every single morning as a team, and it's just like no races show up. We don't know why. None of the horses show up. We don't know why. It's just like, oh my God, we're never going to finish. But they were all like really small issues, but they just, you uncover, you turn over one stone, find new stuff. And but anyway, all that to say, the reaction has been awesome. Seeing basically everyone fill the races, like almost all of them, is a huge thrill because that's the least thing. The last thing you want is just sort of like 3 or 4 races a day going off, and no one can race. And we know that the one of the scary parts of this game is that time that's going on, and if you miss a race window, then it just these races are just getting canceled. And I think the one thing that we really were nervous about was what would happen there, and I think it's been, especially because I don't know if you guys know, but the way this beta is running is actually super smushed, and compressed. So there's races every like 4 to it's really tight schedule, as opposed to like typically we'd maybe have one every 15 minutes or something. It would be a lot. So they're going pretty fast. The week, there's only 1 week, and that's an entire season. So everything's running really fast. The breeding is only 1 day as opposed to an entire week. But that's what we wanted the community to be able to try and test out the age and, their horses getting older and breeding and all that stuff without having to wait 2 or 3 months, so, but yeah, overall, I mean, the feedback's great. We've already rolled out a bunch of great fixes. I mean, there's so many things that we got used to in terms of the UX. We would just know how to do stuff or whatever. And then it's so great to just like all of a sudden have 100 people drop in and be like, how the hell do you do this? Where the I can't connect my wallet. How the hell does it work? And so there's been all that sort of great feedback, and we've already rolled out a ton of great fixes. And this is one of my favorite times of making games is that moment where you kind of got an early enough build where it's very easy to change things. You're not worried about like breaking a bunch of stuff that might jeopardize whatever. And your community, you're talking to them like minute by minute. Like I could be working on something and literally post a screenshot of it, and people are like, "Oh, wait, did you think of that?" And then I just go make it and post it back. Like that is my most fun part of game dev, is like working right with the community members, because I mean they're the ones playing it. Even though I'm gonna test it and try it and play it, but I can't race, because that's not legal. It's not cool. So I really love just entertaining the community. It's my favorite part. Super fun. So anyway, we're happy. Is all that to say.
It's nice to hear that you say that you can't play, because there's a lot of like, that's one of the things with NFT games is you see the creators buying and minting their own stuff, and it's not really like it's which ones are you minting? It comes down to, well, are you getting the best? You know what I mean? So like there's always like there's
inside info.
So it's exactly. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's the one thing. So the team, none of us are allowed to race. We do have horses in the beta, but no one's allowed to race in the real game. And we're really just having horses in the beta so we can test stuff. But the PFPs, there were multiple times during the year where I was just like, man, I'm gonna buy some of these, and I would post in the community. Does anyone mind? There's these 3 floor ones that I think are gonna be worth more, and they're like, hell yeah, please do. Bring the floor up. So I would go buy them personally. But I think it's just all about that transparency. When people are buying rares because they're trading on inside info, that's just like unbelievably uncool. And that's the like fast pass to getting the regulators and the Senate involved in crypto, is by doing shit like that, where you're trading on inside info and you're screwing over everyone else. That's how you get everybody in trouble. Ruin it all for everyone else. That's how you do it.
Yeah. No, you mentioned the fixes, and I think you're actually talking to two probably bigger fans of the fixes, because a lot of the fixes dealt with the UI, UX, and the aesthetic pieces of the game. And I feel like for some game players, they may not have been huge. But for people like me and Doughboy, who a lot of where we're going to come attack this game is show it off, stream it, have fun with the races. A lot of those changes you made, it was pretty ironic. They were a lot of them were like 48 to 72 hours after my first race, and they were all specific things that like I was thinking about, or me and Doughboy were talking about, in terms of like
Nice.
the main one was when we were down the stretch. Now you kind of have that zoomed out view where instead of seeing like two horses, it's still exciting if there's one shooting from like 8th to 3rd, and I can kind of scream and see that one, even if first and second are on their own. So a lot of the things that the changes that have been met like really, really fit me and Doughboy. So it's exciting. And even, over the past week that we've been doing it, we've had a lot of fun. The first 24, 36 hours, we bought our horse. I raced it 7 times because I wasn't really too sure about how it works. So I was waiting until you could race it, like right after the exhausting recovery. And we were in the Discord, we were hanging out. And I think the commish was the one that asked it one night. He was just like, everyone say your record. And we were like 24 hours into this thing. And I was like 3, 2, and 1 through 7 races. And he's like, what? 7 races? It hasn't gotten hurt? But it's
playing with fire.
It's very real in real life, I think. And I think that's what drives a lot of people towards it. And honestly, the fact that I can race less, and we're racing Zucchina at most once a day. And again, if that race cancels, we're not just jamming her in one. We're making sure we do find another real one. It's pulling me and making me almost more engaged with the game while not being on the site. If that makes sense, it's taking up more real estate in my head.
right. Living rent free in your head. Yeah. No, I mean that was a big decision for us very early. I mean, when I was kind of putting together design doc spec for this thing, obviously we've had all these other horse games and all this other horse tech and stuff, so we've got a lot of starting things. But it was just when I was thinking about Web3 blockchain and looking at Zed, looking at other games out there, looking at CryptoKitties, even seeing this sort of problem with this runaway inflationary economy. A big part was we got to slow it down. And I was so scared of if that'll be a worry, but I'm just thinking about me personally. When you play fantasy football, how different that is. And that's what I've always equated this to. I tell the team, I tell anyone I talk to, just imagine it's more like fantasy. You're not a control. You're not going to sit there and play for 8 hours straight unless you have a huge stable. You're just trying to be strategic about it. Oh man, you got a slow, choppy stream though. Is there any way to make it, or is that just me?
No, that's not photo finish. That's StreamYard. Just doing StreamYard things.
I'm gonna try it on mine and see.
Yeah, see if you could pop it up, because it always tends to be mine. What if I take us off?
Yeah, I mean, when I do Zoom and stuff, it's the same way. It's always such a bummer. There's only a couple of sites that are really, really good, Aurora.
If anyone here is you could just bring up photo finish on your other thing if you don't want to chop it. That's what I'm doing, and I'm watching it. It's very, very clear on photo finish. But I know Jamal Anderson. I think that's Arbitrage. We'll see if that's them after this race. 4-1, 4-1, 6-1. Origin of Flames, 31-2.
Wow, 31-2.
It's the 6 furlong, right dirt firm. Me and Doughboy only go left, and we only go long, so we never see any of these horses.
Oh, yeah.
31-2.
Look at these long shots.
Look at this, and it's a sprint.
I'm a fan of adding the half point.
Run amok. They get him.
Wow,
close one.
The long shot, second long shot.
31-2.
I hate those numbers. We're fixing that soon. 15-1.
15-1 makes more sense than 15.
I know, yeah.
But
yeah, it's so stupid. That's just one of those little bugs.
But that's an easy. That's
so easy. Yeah.
I don't think anyone. I haven't seen anyone question the odds in Discord yet. So
yeah, I think everyone just goes, "Are they? How close are they?" They don't. There's just a lot of the questions of how much do the odds know and all that.
As soon as I saw it, I was like, "Yeah, we'll cut that in half." I was like, "I know what that number's supposed to be."
So this is a good. And let's bring us back. This is the horse that won, even in a race that had it wasn't this one. It was, I think it had some S minuses in it.
Yeah,
But even in a race that had S minuses, this horse, Origin of Flames, you can tell this is someone that has kind of learned their horse. The right
big
3 of
brain.
3, the dirt 2 of 3, the firm 3 of 3, and for an A plus, it has its S minuses at start and at speed, so it's going to hit hard at those first furlongs.
Yep.
So yeah, if this one was in anything longer than 8, 9, 10, and in one with S minuses that belonged in those races, this would get smacked.
Yeah, he'd run out of gas, right? The
Yeah,
stamina.
but you see here, and this is what we like to see, like when you don't have a horse in the race, I'm literally just looking for the lowest quality and rooting for it, obviously, because we're all sports fans.
Yeah,
So, you know,
right.
you enjoy
Underdog.
looking at this, and then it's nice to see when stuff like this makes sense, because, right, you don't just want it happening for the sake of happening because you need it to happen to have a fun game. You come in here and you do this, and me and Doughboy look at it and we say, oh, it's 2 S minuses for the A plus horse are at start and speed. In a 6 furlong, we can kind of write off stamina. We can kind of write off, maybe not write off finish, but it may not matter too much, more so stamina. That this is much more of an S minus horse, Doughboy, in a short race than A plus if you were rating it.
Yeah, exactly. If you're handicapping, you know, that's the really kind of fun part about it is trying to, and that's my favorite part so far is like, you know, we obviously have plenty of tuning to do to get this stuff dialed in even more. The odds, all those things we can get tighter and tighter and tighter over time. We have, of course, spent like 3-4 years on this stuff, so we have a head start on it being pretty close. But that's my favorite part is like when you go through the odds and you make picks yourself when you're looking at the horses, like you're usually pretty close.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like, and when you miss, you're like, oh, I get it. You know, I see why I was wrong there. You know, so that's sort of sometimes just a random one will take it. Like, geez, how did that? You know, how did he sneak in there? But it's like it makes sense enough that it's not predictable, but it's also not random.
The odds just provide such a good conversational base, like for game talk, honestly, because it provides a set base where no matter what the opinion is, like we all go in like, okay, we're comparing it to this. What do we think? When you don't have that, you're kind of finding a starting, like it's like almost like mediation with sports. Like it doesn't ever happen in the middle. It's like one side or the other wins, and you never want to start there. So these odds, who cares if they're even like they're not? But even if they were just made up and random, you could still be like, hey, this horse says it's 4-1, and it's not even close to that. But having that 4-1 start point allows you to talk however you want. And then you do what we just did. We see a horse that maybe is a lower alphabetical grade in this, but is at a distance where it has odds that don't make sense to us until we look at the underlying stats. And then it's like, oh, its stamina is amazing for this quality of horse. We're running a marathon. That's why its odds are more set at the as the horses above it. And that leads me to probably my biggest question that I wanted to ask you just from a gameplay standpoint. And again, I understand you probably can't give too much of a legit specific answer, but how much variation is there within the letter grades? Like if we have horses that across the line have like similar boosts in the same letter grade, like all A plus, let's say, across the board, how different can those two horses actually be?
Yeah, I don't even know the exact number, but it is, you know, a matter of enough time to win and lose. I mean, and dramatically, I think. I mean, that's going to be one of those things people figure out over time, a little bit closer of like, well, I'm flat A pluses across the board, and I beat flat A minuses across the board, but then I can't beat a flat, you know, S minus, you know, or whatever it is. But there is a range, and like between minus, even, and plus, and each of them have a big range inside of them that they can wiggle up and down through. And the players of our previous games have learned a lot of those sort of numbers, you know, even though it's not all exactly the same anymore, but there is a, you know, a big block of variance. And that was a big part. Like when people were breeding their tickets together and making them, were like, you know, what's the deal? I have a number, you know, 30 ranking and I'm versus a number 60 ranking. How come they're the same number, you know, A plus or S minus?
Yeah.
And it's, you know, because there is wiggle in between. And the big difference that we did with this game is we didn't show you that difference. Whereas in Horse Racing Manager, the previous game, if you look at it, we actually had these little radial fill bars that would show you like how far you were along to, if you're an S, how far you were to be an S plus. And the reason we pulled that out is because people figured it out.
Yeah.
Players were able to like figure out how many pixels went into the thing and realize like, okay, I'm exactly here. And they were able to reverse engineer the formula of the actual attributes. So we didn't want to do that anymore.
So a wordy and specific question to follow up on that, and if it doesn't make sense to you, just tell me and I'll try and rephrase it. So we got 3 horses. 2 of them are S's across the line, and the third one is an S minus across the line.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I know you can't be specific, but are we saying potentially the ranges could be wide enough where if there was the S all the way across the line that was all the way at the bottom of S's, that horse could actually be closer in skill to a really high across the line S minus than the other S across the line that's a really high S? Like, is that how far potentially the ranges within the same letters could be?
Probably.
Okay, that's cool. See, that's cool.
Yeah.
I like that. And yeah.
It's a fickle
little
little
races, right? Like we're constantly seeing in a horse race where if there's like 4 A pluses and like 4 A minus and 4 S minuses, they're really just being jumbled when the people figure out their horses and know a specific length and a specific condition. I feel like you guys did a really good job of kind of blending those lines, and because of how specific those conditions are, allow even like the A's, if you figure out that horse, to compete with like S minus on a perfect day.
Yep. No, and that's we love that, that was part of a lot of the effort was just making sure that if you tailor and that was so hard to convey to people. It's so fun having the beta out now because you can just like illustrate, race by race what it means. But when I look back to January, February or something, like every single person that would join is like, why am I going to play this game? There's no way I'll compete with the S horse. There's no way I'm going to beat Big Brains stable, and it was so hard to convey to people. Like, number one, you've got to choose races that work for your horses, and you can actually choose that strategically. Like, it's not a random thing. You don't have to just guess or whatever. You actually can sort of strategically start to figure out what he's good at. And then the other part being that you're not racing against S horses if you don't want to. You like there's lower grade races. Now the beta, of course, is like there is a lot of pollution. There's a lot of S's going way down into cheap, crappy races, but that will reduce over time when we get all the allowances and all the different handicaps and stuff going on in the real game. But yeah, it's just one of those hard things to convey. But now it's like it's clear as day. It's like, hey, if you get a nice solid A plus, just like we saw just now, that entered into the race for his strengths, and other people are like, well, I've got an S, I'll throw him in. He's probably not good on the dirt. I don't know. They'll get beat, which I think is great.
Yeah, it's good. It's happening early and often because it really is allowing people, like you said, it's a little tough to just believe that off the cuff. It's like, oh, they could just be saying that, and maybe sporadically it will happen. But yeah, we're seeing quite often that horses of lower caliber letter of score overall are finding that specificity nature and the perfect role, especially with how weather conditions work. Like things can happen like crazy with that, where you can even enter a race where who you would think is the favorite like 2 hours before doesn't become the favorite. Like Doughboy literally texts me screaming. He's like, why do you put it in this rainy? I'm like, I'm telling you, when I loaded it hours ago, it was clear, and now it's raining. And I promise you, like, I'm not doing it. But like, I fell into the habit where I was filling races like way in advance. So like, who knew? Like, what was gonna happen? Like, I knew that, but like, that's just how I wanted to play it, and it was a lot of fun. But yeah, that's
one of my favorite changes. So our previous game, Horse Racing Manager, races are every 5 minutes. And they've been running for like 4 years, these races. But the weather was exact, and so you could look down and see, okay, mud is coming in 30 minutes, so I'm going to go prep a mudder and be ready for that race in 30 minutes. And so we got to this point where like people were like hyper focusing their stables over time. Many generations. That game you can breed thousands of generations at your own pace, and so people had just hyper focused all these bloodlines. And so then they could just easily, pick off the ones that they want. And when we talked about that, it was like, oh man, just what a difference it'll be because no one knows. Like that happens all the time. You're just like, oh man, as long as it doesn't rain, I've got a killer. My horse hates the mud. Or the other flip side, oh please rain, please rain. He loves the slop, or whatever. So I love that part of it. It's just really like real life, but really like everyone accepts it. It doesn't feel like you got screwed. It doesn't feel like there's any. It's just that part of the randomness of real life comes over, and you're like, oh man, I played it right or I didn't.
No, it's funny you say that because me and Doughboy had a conversation that sounded similar to that where I did freak. I'm not an in real life horse person. So I'm like, the weather got me again, blah, blah. Doughboy's like, skill-based game, bro. Like, I do this in real life with horses. Like, you can trust an almanac, you can trust a meteorologist, but like, who knows exactly what's going to happen. And if the weather changes on a dot like that, like, it doesn't feel screwed at all. So exactly what you're saying rings true.
It's one of those things in real life too. Like during the summer season is when you get turf races, and normally you can pinpoint the rain. So you try and train your horse around that day. That's not a turf horse. Hope that you get entered into the race, and then all the real turf horses scratch when it comes off. And you scoop the easy pot. Like that's actually something that happens in real life. Like that happens. But
it's awesome.
That's one of the things though. Like so the weather changes throughout the game or throughout the time until from entry start till 10 minutes till post, I guess.
Yeah.
It's just okay. See?
Yeah, I think it's like a random chance, and that's one thing that we still want to make even more in depth. This is one of those things we just kind of got it roughly in there for beta, but our hope for final launch is obviously all the tracks are at locations.
Yeah.
And then the track itself has got a weather forecast for the day. So you could see like, all right, well, the next 9, obviously, just like real life, there's going to be 12 races run in, Louisville today. The broadcast or the forecast is this. And so that you could kind of like pick and choose, but right now it's kind of the minimum version of it. And I think it, works pretty well just as the way it is. But yeah, because it should feel that way when I Gulfstream, if it's raining at Gulfstream, obviously the other thing they change, of course, that we haven't done yet is that they'll cancel them and they'll move them to dirt, and so then your turf horse, so we need to do that too. But there's all these little details that we'll get to over time.
That's one thing that was touched on in the Discord AMA the other day as well, as like far as our scratch is going to be implemented, but that only happens if what we just talked about, like if the weather affects the turf races and they have to come off, like you have a window where you can scratch out. Or
get me out of here.
Is there a penalty for doing that? And what because in IRL there's penalties for scratching if it's not like a weather-related scratch or something. So this game's deep. I love it. Yeah. I've been in the ears since like last year in November, December, like in our Discord, just like posting like when y'all would update something. I'm like, this game is gonna be real. This game is gonna be the truth. Like, and then like I started watching some of your interviews and got your background, and I'm like, I trust. Like, I
Thank
trust.
you.
Like, I see FanDuel, I see Madden. I play both of those. I trust. So
right. Those should work.
I'm dying because I'm thinking about how like our shows in its final form, like we'll have a weather segment. I'll legit have a green screen up and be like if we do like a Saturday of races where it's like a photo of races and like we throw it. And it's like, if you're looking to fill races today, here's the weather at this track, here's the weather at that track.
Yeah.
And like,
there's a typhoon headed towards the Hong Kong, right.
Laughing about it, like that's just as important as then, as how long is the race, which way leaning is the race, what else is happening. Like you got to figure out that weather with it. So, that's what me and Doughboy like about it. Like not that like we consider it like too much, but anything that we can do to add like even that little bit of value. And obviously the more things there are in a race, the more contingencies that you have to and conditions, the more we can just like have conversations about it. So just releasing facts as to what the weather is actually then helps people, make ROI on their assets. And as someone with even like a business or economic mind, take even the gameplay standpoint out of it. Just like that's what's cool about this space in general. And it leads me, as we kind of work backwards, I know we started with beta and we'll kind of work more and more towards your beginning. We know the success that you had, with your previous game, kind of what a lot of this is based on. What drove you guys to want to take it to the next step. And what I mean by that is put it on the blockchain.
That's a good question. I mean, people that don't know kind of the background, we made Horse Racing Manager a mobile game in 2018. Before that, in 2015, we made the first Photo Finish, and Photo Finish, the first one, is very much a arcade, like you are whipping a horse. You are a jockey simulator, right? And that game was how I started the studio. Like people don't know, I made that game like on my own time, nights and weekends, released it by myself, and it sort of like took off. And then I was able to build a studio around it and hire, and we made it into a full business. But when we got to Horse Racing Manager, it was just sort of like we had really found kind of this niche of players that was much smaller. Like Photo Finish had millions of downloads, 12, 13 million. It'd have weeks where it would just explode, during the Derby season and stuff like that. But when we got to Horse Racing Manager, we'd found this like much more of a niche. It was sort of frustrating at first that like, oh man, why aren't people staying around? What's going on? And then all over time, like it took us about maybe 6 to 9 months to get the race math where it made a lot of sense, the breeding where it made a lot of sense. And then all of a sudden we ended up with this core of like 100, 200, 300 players. Sometimes it'd go up to 1,500, sometimes come down. And these guys were like not sleeping, playing so much. And it was unhealthy. Like we had to start changing a lot of the formulas and stuff because people were like just on it all day, every day. And so we're like, okay, maybe we found a little section here of people that are, doing this. And we kept working on the simulation, making it better and better and better, online multiplayer better and better. But at the same time, we had a publisher, Tilting Point, name of that publisher, that was basically running marketing for this game. And around that time, like that game, as you could tell, was not good for a publisher because it was like, if you ran ads or marketing, it would just be all lost money because it was like we needed like hardcore horse racing fanatic people, which was very hard to find. And so over time, it was like that relationship soured. We couldn't get much support from them, and so we started to look at like building another game, and we ended up deciding to basically form a new studio for Glue Mobile here in Orlando. And so I helped build a new studio for Glue. It took about 1.5 years, 2 years, and we retained Third Time. Third Time kept running. The Horse Racing Manager kept going, but we were trying to basically kind of like build up a new thing. And then EA acquired Glue, and I worked at EA for 10 years, and I was like, I do not want to work at EA again. That I'd already done that. And so basically at that point, I was like, what am I going to do? This was like January 2021. I was like, what, I don't want to work at EA. So what am I going to do? So I still had the horse racing games. They were still operating, still running. And around that time, I had started to see, Bored Ape and a few of these things starting to really like catch mainstream success. I think it was a little bit before Zed had blown back up. I don't know. A lot of people don't know that I talked to Zed and met with Zed like in 2019 or something. When they were looking before they were 3D, they were looking for an engine to render their races, and they were trying to license one from us. So like I knew about this stuff forever, but it was sort of like, well, that's not quite mainstream. Blockchain was still, like CryptoKitties. I'd seen these things, and I was just like, no one's really playing that stuff yet. It's too hard. And so once I started to see it in the beginning of 2021, I was like, oh, this can be played. Like people are coming in now. And it was like, man, I've got this horse racing game, and everything about it would be 1,000 times better if it was on the blockchain. And you only say the blockchain. If people owned the assets was really for me. Like I'm not a maxi of any of the blockchain things. All of them have their negatives and positives, any of that stuff. Like I just want to make good games that are entertaining. And when I think about some of the top players in our Horse Racing Manager game, like they would be like millionaires if they had been able to buy and sell those breeding rights that they had been doing for years, And so that to me was like, wow, that clicked right away. That an idea of a game that we don't control the economy anymore, but the players do, was like, this is exactly what it's got to be, and then around that time, around I guess February, April, I gotta fix this. It's like weird camera cut, happens every once in a while since I check that stuff in. Anyway, I started to see, around, then Zed, I think, had a big summer or something around that time too, and so then it was like, actually kind of difficult as I started to pitch, and say that we wanted to do this thing. Everyone's like, well, how are you going to beat Zed? Zed is already well ahead of you and entrenched and stuff. And so, but then it was like, a much easier thing of like, well, here's why I know we're different. Here's the things that are different. And I'm not even going to compete with Zed. It's just different. They're different
They're
experiences.
completely.
Yeah.
They're not even competitors in my
Yeah.
eyes.
It's weird getting the salt from
you're
some
related
Zed people.
to them, and I don't say
Yeah.
that negatively on either side. You're as related to them as you are with any other P2E game at this point.
Mhm.
Like that's how closely, like the actual game wise, you got like you're as close to Zed as you are TRV or Footy.
Right.
Like, that's how far
Right.
like you
Yeah.
are from actually them. So I
Yeah,
really don't see you guys as competitors at all. But one thing that you mentioned there, and you mentioned a bunch in a lot of the stuff that me and Doughboy have listened to for interviews with you, and it's one of the things that makes me very, very like think that this is going to do well, and think that this game is kind of going to find its place in this arena is the fact that you constantly bring up how like niche focused you guys are, and you guys like understand that, and I never see you guys potentially like building something ever that's like too big or like bigger than what it should be. You say it with this, you say it with sweets. You're very good at like realizing like, hey, this is what we got, and like let's just make the best version of that versus like what else can like we build off this. Like you understand this is a horse simulator that for a lot of people like you have to kind of have an somewhat understanding of like in real life horse racing. I know you've talked about, and this is one really cool thing that I know you're excited about. You have had the opportunity of you guys have started the crossover and got people into in real life horse racing from experiencing you guys first. But we all know, and we're not naive, that more so and more likely it has to happen the other way to get a lot of users. So I really appreciate the fact that you guys kind of understand that, and you know like what this game is, and you'll go elsewhere and you're happy to have like anyone else that wants to try and wants to get new into the space and isn't in real life horse person, but you know that those people will appreciate it if we can just get it in front of them. And like I was saying in the Discord the other game, I showed this game to a lot of people over the weekend, and because of the simulation agreements that you have with a lot of the big races, it's very easy to show it off because they're like, wait, I've seen this. Where have I seen this before?
Right.
And I'm like, and then I would show them like a clip of like when Justify was running or the other ones, and I was like, yeah, we were together like years ago watching this like on stream. So having that go for you, and like having that go for you, plus knowing that you have that go for you, and you constantly bringing it up and realizing that, I really like that. Because
it's part of like
you'll never lose sight of like what, and I don't say this as a bad term. I say it as a good term for like the low hanging fruit of who you can get into the community.
And there's millions of them, and that was my eureka moment back in 2014 when I did the first photo finish. Is a lot like number one, the authenticity part of sports is like burned in my brain. Like being from my whole career when I started was at EA Sports, where if I had the wrong color wristband on a backup tight end, for the Browns, we would get chewed out, by these players. So like, having attention to detail, authenticity matter has been like just burned in my head. And then when you think back to me as a kid, like I never watched hockey, but I knew every player in the NHL from playing NHL 94 or 95 or whatever. I had the books and I read all the stats. And so it's like, I've seen that sort of like blend between the real life and sport. And then it's like, oh man, Steve, I would call him Steve Yzerman, because I didn't know how he was actually called, but I was like, I love Steve Yzerman, man.
That's like me when I was first learning, when I was first betting on golf in college. I was learning a lot of them just by reading their lines. And I was calling him like Kevin Keisner and not Kevin. And like people would hear me say it, and I'd be like, oh yeah, I've never actually said it out loud before, so I get it.
Heard it, But so I see that sort of blend in and out, but that was the eureka thing for me when I started and made the first photo finish. Was like, I have to make something that EA will leave me alone. I didn't want to go make a football game because I knew they'd be like all in my shit. They would be like, I saw how they were when you competed with them. I mean, they're like, good for them. They're competitive. So am I. But it was like, I don't want to deal with like them trying to knock me out. was really it. And I thought there's no way EA Sports will ever make a horse racing game. That was just sort of like in my head. And yet when I search the top sports in the world, it's like right there, there's people every day searching the word horse racing. And that was the moment for me of like on mobile, on iPhone, Android at that time, there was literally nothing. I mean, there were like 12 horse racing games and they were all like made by a kid, 2D sprites. I mean, they were just absolutely terrible. And so it was like, this is a niche that, and then over time I started to learn like, not only is it large, but it's like full of extremely wealthy and loyal and people used to losing money, like people used to partying with their dollars. Like it was like, man, this is an amazing group of people and it is huge. And like, that's the other thing. When I went and did all the fundraising and pitch decks and stuff, I mean, half of them will go, well, what sport are you going to do next? Because horse racing is, pretty small, right? And I'm like, it's not. So I'm not doing another sport. Do you not realize how much money is in this industry? Have you seen how much the wager take is? Do you know that sheikhs are the ones that are paying billions of dollars? It's like, it is a huge money sport, more so than almost any other. In terms of like the average player wants to spend $100,000 to even have a place at the table to go into a claiming race. They're just like, sure, I'll spend $150,000. It's just like, it's unbelievable how different it is. So, to me, it's like, why compete with the big dogs? We're never going to have an NFL license. We're never going to compete with Madden. We're never going to try and mess around with FIFA. But like with horse racing, no one can mess with us. Oh, who just got hurt?
That was our first injury. That's the first time I saw an injury in the track.
Yeah, he's out.
Oh, damn.
There he goes.
Holy
Look
shit,
at
that's
him.
so fucking realistic.
Poor
So
guy.
my favorite in our race today, Doughboy, got hurt today.
Yo, that's nuts.
Did you guys know that? I don't think anyone's seen it yet. There's like a 1 in a million chance of a horse with a zero temper dumping the jockey, and then he's ragdoll too. So like he'll get like,
Oh my God.
it's super rare. Like no one's seen it yet. But I can't wait till it comes out. Actually, I need to check and make sure, but it's a really low chance. But yeah, it'll happen.
That's
Hopefully.
nuts.
Yeah, there's a lot of things like that I'd love to do, just more and more like interesting things, like starting out of the gate. I mean, Doughboy, we were talking. I just got my own horse. I bought in with the boat racing guys, and his every training and every race, he just sucks out of the gate. It's awful.
Ian, you started something. If this comment,
I keep showing this wrong.
Time to
breathe
bad.
Right.
That's
Roll
that's and that's one thing I was talking to Zook about, but I want to hear more about.
I was saying, it's just like, that's the things that I want to keep adding in, like seeing that, my personal horse, like he's got a D start, I would say, if we're going to do that, or C minus. And it's like, I need to get animations, because like every time he like doesn't not only come out slow, he like eats shit when he comes out. He like,
they stumble either front first or they come out rearing up. Like I had a horse that did that. It was two anti. As soon as the gate opened, he just fell over on top of himself and I was out. Like,
so I got to get that level of stuff, like.
So is that something like? So now, obviously, you can buy the card, you get your 2-year-old. When we breed foals, is that something you're going to implement as part of training? Is there going to be like the aspect of training where, for start, you have to go to the starting gate X times to, school your horse in that? Like,
yeah, I mean, this is part of the longer term vision. My hope was that this would all be in by the end of this year, and it's like, it's gonna be tight if we're gonna do that. But the mobile app is what I've always considered as the big funnel to bring in huge amounts of players, because it would be free. The end goal of the mobile app player is maybe you get a free D horse, maybe you get lucky and he's a C plus or C minus or something, kind of the way Robinhood works. That where it's like you're going to get a free stock at the end of this process. But the way that the horse racing manager, core loop is sort of what I envisioned for this, that style of game, but more fun. Like the core part of horse racing manager was balancing their weight versus their rest versus their form. And then you would have to also choose what style of training you wanted to give them. So if you wanted to get them better at starting, you had to go train them in gate training. Every time you did, it would cost something, but make something else go up. So it was just this like constant move up, down.
That was one of the, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So that's what I think we would do with the mobile app. Try and make it a little bit more fun, less grindy. and then that be a big onboarding thing. Because I think when I look at the game right now, every horse is basically at max form, perfect weight, well rested, um, and the difference will be once the mobile game is live, he will no longer be that. He will require care to basically keep him at that level. And so that's where we start to see like these guys that have huge stables, they start to rent out, or they hire stable hands to do the training. And so we then can open up this huge sect of people on mobile, 100,000 players hopefully that are training and doing that training stuff for you. And then Europe. Did I keep you guys? You still there? Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway.
no, this game is really beautiful. Like, not to
Thanks.
not to brown nose you or anything, but like, I'm just
Thank you.
sitting here watching it. It really is beautiful. And this race specifically, I'm a little tuned into because this is a 12-horse race, I'm pretty sure, where the lowest odds are 13 to 2. So this is like a very
23. I see a 23, but yeah, pretty high. Yep.
No, I mean lowest in terms of
lowest, best. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I think
right.
6.5 to 1 is the
I heard
best
you,
odds in this race. Where I've been in a lot of lower amount of horse races, so there's been a lot of like 2 to 1s and 3 to 1s. So seeing it, I get excited for ones like this because these are the ones where like if a 20 to 1 wins or something like that, it's obviously a little bit of a surprise, but not too crazy when we see what the lowest is. Right now, Patty is in first, 20 to 1. That favorite, Beelzebub, takes over.
Yeah.
Beelzebub, Patty, Soul Days, Unlimited Data Plan. Those are the top 4 that have kind of separated themselves from the rest. A 12 furlong race, so this is the longest that we can do. It's right, it's turf, it's soft.
Yep, looks a little wet out there.
It's
Quite a
wet.
slog.
Beelzebub's losing a little bit. You would think, is Patty's stamina maybe a little bit of a higher rating? It's something we'll look into after. Still getting used to the pace of it, and Patty takes over. The 20 to 1 race around the corner. Beelzebub falls from first to second to third. Soul Days takes it over. Will Beelzebub stay on the podium? But as it stands, around that final turn and down the stretch, Patty, that 20 to 1 horse lead grows. But as I say that, can Beelzebub, can Soul Days, can Rigolo, can any of these horses catch the 20 to 1 Patty in the Fish and Chips Maiden? And no, Patty takes it. 20 to 1, baby. Whose horse is that? That's a sick win.
I had 5'11" exacta. That's gonna kill.
Yo, see, yeah, Hollywood saying it. The longest winner
I want to touch on that. I want to touch on that. So we see odds, and obviously, if you can just say no if you can't answer. We have odds, and we see claiming races on the docket.
Yep.
Will the 2 tokens that are on the site, are those going to be used in a pari-mutuel way? And what is going to fund the claiming races? Because IRL funding comes from casino and pari-mutuel money that comes in. Is that going to be similar in this ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, the answer is complicated, of course, as you know. The hope is for sure that we fund everything with wagers, and that was a big part of the pitch that I've talked to the community, that I talked to investors about, was like, here's how much money went in race purses last year. Here's how much money went through the wagering take. It's absurdly, it's massive, right? There's 11 billion or 22 billion, and 11 was in Japan alone or something, per year. But I also am not crazy. Like, the reason pari-mutuel is fun is because the pools are large. If there's 6 people betting on them, they're not fun, because then all of a sudden you're all going to have like 1 to 12 odds on one horse or whatever, So it requires a bunch of people. It requires legal hurdles, us making sure that we have that stuff in place. But that is the hope for sure, that the Derby token that we have is, you're earning it from racing, and then you can just go throw in an exacta box. There is a pari-mutuel pool for it. Everyone's doing it together. And that's what's helping fund a lot of the prize pools. Certain races, maybe more than others, like you say, claiming maybe the whole thing. Some of them, maybe it's 50%. That's the hope. But it's like, when I think about before we get to that, it's definitely a concern of mine that people will want to put up all of the pot themselves with a risk of losing it all, that kind of thing. And, and I don't really play Zed enough to know, but I've obviously seen that their amount of paid races have come down. And so it's sort of like one of those things of like, well, if people start losing, how long will they keep trying it, until you have something else to juice those pots? And so, there's always these other things you can do, the sponsorships or whatever marketing things you can do to help fund those pots so people don't leave. But, to me, the way to do it is to do what real life does, and have the wager handle help these racers out. But it's just going to take a little bit of time to figure out. But I don't know. I mean, as of right now, like, there'd probably be enough interest with the people using what they're earning and just dumping it back in on even if it was simple pools, like we don't let exotics yet, or you just require like win bets, that's it, or something, so that like everyone's together. I bet we could get close to it being pretty fun, and the odds moving around.
That taps
100%.
into
People are waiting for that. People are like dying for that.
It taps into the market that doesn't necessarily like want to run a horse.
Yeah, it's a lot of work to
know
how to own one.
Handicapping either. So yeah, that's.
Or it allows, which I love because I'm always thinking about it in this way. It allows for, like, now there's another way to get money to get a horse, and I never suggest gambling as an investment. But if you're using it as hobby money anyway, like you can get a $2,000 horse by coming in with 200, learning the game, finding lines that fit in your favor and good value, and over a few weeks betting properly to turn that 200 in coin to 2,000 in coin, and then being able to take it to Magic Eden and then getting your first horse that way. So that's why I love lending. That's why I love gambling, more so than what it does from the game itself. I just love giving people like as many avenues as possible to potentially come in with minimal, but still use the game itself to get up that bankroll to then get in on the ownership side, which, as you said, is ultimately the reason why you even turn it into an NFT, right? Because that's what you want everyone to be able to experience at the end of the day, that ownership. So having that gambling side open that up is obviously the most appealing to me, on top of obviously I'm a DGen. And as I sit here when I'm at work and I have the races up anyway, I would love to be throwing like the extra I have on
tokens.
The side.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that's it's actually occurred to me not too long ago of like how happy I am that we made some of the decisions we made, months and months ago, because it's so easy to have broken this ability to have gambling, and wagering, if our horses didn't age out, if they didn't keep their stats, if they didn't, there's just like so many things that are going to allow it. If we didn't have this race window where you enter a race and then now there's like 10 minutes of waiting, which is a betting window, basically, that's already there. Like, those are the things that, like, if we didn't have these core details, like, there would be no way for you to bet on these. And as of right now, because there's like a million other things that we implemented, each one of those is super important to make it so that you can actually click on a race, see all the entrants, and then make a bet, but it not be a guarantee. Like, you really are like, geez, okay, he won the last. And I've seen people in Discord doing it, like, oh, he won his last 2 11 furlong races. I think that's pretty good. He's on a streak or whatever. There's all this stuff that is happening that is so key. Whereas if it was a random race, number one, like, I don't know, like a D race or something where it's just, or a peg axie where it's just like a random roll, you can't gamble on a random roll. Like, there's got to be all these like interesting previous results and, PPs of stuff before that would make it actually make sense to wager on it. So anyway, I'm super excited to build it. It's just going to be a little bit painful.
I have another aesthetic. I think you touched on that pretty well. I don't know if Zuki, you have anything else to add to that?
No. I think we all kind of know like how important, specifically for the horse racing world, how much like the external money is. So it's exciting to hear that, Ian knows that and is kind of focused on that, because like Doughboy said, a lot of these lower level things to kind of entice that community to get involved, specifically with lower level maidens, does come from juice pots, which obviously, we can't expect you guys to be pulling money out of nowhere, right? So the easiest way is either with sponsorship money and gambling. And I'm happy that, through what you've done and kind of your partnerships, you do have maybe not direct exposure to all of that, but definitely on the sponsorship side you do. But it seems like you kind of know that you got to get that going to, even if, let's say it took a while, there's so much you can do, like without that stuff going on now, like what we're doing right now. You don't need that tomorrow. You don't need that the next day. But we're always talking about, final form, like years down the line.
How does that last?
Yeah, we all know like how important like gambling will be to this ecosystem as a whole. There's going to be a lot more money gambled on it potentially than will actually be entered as entry fee in races, probably by like 10x. So
easily if it's done right. Yeah,
it's exciting, and it's kind of the great cherry on top of all of these spaces, the ability to gamble on it.
Yeah, I mean, I look at this like, why not, or what is stopping a Twin Spires or a FanDuel player from being able to bet on this with this current balance? Like, can we have these run in places like Vegas, in places like those apps where there aren't races running, or there downtimes where we could fill in, or is it always running? And it's like, if I was going to go pitch that, to talk to a couple of these people, it's like all the things have to be there for it to be even viable. And so I'm so excited that they are, like, that it's all real users. They're the ones that own these horses. There's like, obviously there's going to be people that are trying to exploit it and min-max and all this stuff, but like, it's about as clean as real horse racing, in terms of like the actual race itself. They don't have control over, this and that. They're not going to be doing too much crazy, of course.
We just saw a horse pull up in the middle of a race.
Yeah,
so like, I don't know how much more realistic. Yeah, outside of seeing the jockey get dumped, or like an erratic start from another horse somewhere down the lane. But
we've got more stuff to do. I mean, definitely have more realism stuff to add, and over time. And I think that there's a few things that I've always wanted to get to, which is just like trying to get more of the run style stuff to matter. Just like horses that are known closers actually doing that, and then if they happen to get stuck in that they just can't, like there's a few things that we just haven't quite done, but I mean, it's really close. It's getting there. Like comparatively, I'm always my own worst critic, but comparatively, I think we're obviously pretty far along compared to anybody else.
A personal question, and then I'll go through the chat because I've seen that some people have been asking questions. And I want to make sure we get to all those. Are you responsible for this?
Yeah. That was my first year as creative director. Hopefully that's not a
Do you believe in the Madden curse?
Do I believe in the Madden curse? No. I don't.
Data's there.
Because I'm
The
a
NFL,
Pittsburgh Steelers fan, and even though Troy Polamalu didn't I'm a diehard Pittsburgh Steelers fan. Even though the next year he didn't specifically fall off the wagon, the year after that, he kind of continually
like 30 down. Though, it's the thing about the Madden curse is like it's great. It's a great story for, of course, even for Madden PR team. It's great to have them talk about it. But like, I mean, you could throw a dart at Madden at an NFL roster, and likely one of those guys is getting hurt that year. Like, I mean, it's every single player gets hurt. So it was just sort of like you're playing the odds of, because they would be like, oh, the Madden curse, and it would be a guy that like sprained his ankle for two games. Vic was bad. There have been a few like really bad ones. But for the most part, they're like mild.
There's been a few bad ones that those really bad ones have kind of allowed for the really minor ones, like you're saying, just to be like add-ons. Like there's 3 like really bad ones, and then the rest are like you're saying, an ankle sprain for like 3 weeks. So like their numbers are down because they missed like 3 games, but like everyone misses like 3 games of football. So like I get it, but no, I know that you were here from 2010 to 2012. So I knew that
I was at EA my first Madden. I tested Madden 01. Madden 2000.
From 10 to 12, you were running the show, though, right?
Yeah. I was creative director of 10, 11, 12.
Yeah, so I knew that maybe you had it out for me with this cover, but it's not as bad as the guy that was responsible for the Antonio Brown cover, I think in 2016 or 17. That was legit the off season that he went crazy. So I can't. I'll give you this one because Palma still had
and Fitz, I mean, like, give me a break. Like, he played a massive career after.
That's true. That's true. But I'm not too concerned about him. I'm more.
Breeze was 12. I'm trying to even remember. It was 11.
One of the more popular covers of all time.
I think so. Like, that was a big year for us.
I had this blown up in my bedroom growing up because again I'm a diehard Steelers fan, and I didn't mind having Larry fits in there because this was after the year that we beat them, so it was kind of a memorial of that. That I'm thinking of the covers. Were you there for Peyton? Were you there
Peyton
for
Hillis? I feel like had to be one of the bigger ones.
Yeah, that was the choose the
yeah, that was when the fan vote.
Mm-hmm.
That was the fan vote.
Yeah.
Can you find out who was responsible for Reggie Bush being a cheat code and let them know that I thank them for allowing him to put
Reggie Bush was
for me? I loved every single time that happened.
Yeah.
It was my favorite.
Yeah, there were certain things like that. The Vic, the Madden 04 year, I just remember specifically, it was just like we had no answer for Vic. I mean, it was like giving him these attributes that no quarterback had ever had, and we had literally no defensive AI to handle someone, and nor did the real league. It was so interesting.
Yeah. Y'all could have looked at Randall Cunningham in Tecmo.
Yeah, looked way back.
What happened there,
Sort of, not close,
almost.
Sort of close. But then
is there literally anything specific as like we sit here and joke about though, and not so much like I'm sure like general philosophy and mannerisms about creating a game you learn, but anything actually specifically from Madden in terms of gameplay or capturing audiences that you think they do positively that you have no qualms about saying like, yeah, legit, we're just trying to probably do that over here as well.
No, I mean, I bet it's hard to tell for sure, but like, because I still see a lot of flaws in this thing, but like, I grew up obviously playing Madden, and then as I was there for those 10 years, I became such a very anal purist about a lot of things. And so like these cameras are all in the real locations, shot for shot when you go watch races. Now, of course, some tracks don't have good camera setups. They have one single camera that follows all the way around. But like this is the Churchill setup, like almost to a T, like the way that they shoot each shot. Now, of course, we have differences with there's like when it's only 6 furlongs versus 9 or 10, things can be different. But that was something that we did in Madden. Like we would go and watch a broadcast of the Cowboys, and we would look at every single camera angle that they shot, and that's where we would put our cameras to make sure that they shot one for one. So they're like. And then when you look at these horses and just sort of the blending of their animation states between when the jockeys start pushing, there's a couple of little blips here and there. The leaning is still not right for me. There's a few things that I haven't nailed, but I'm working on. But the that level of detail is all like just from me being super obsessed with that level of stuff. Like it's weird. I ran probably 15, 20 motion capture shoots at Madden. I would do those. When I first started as a producer, that was what I did a lot of, was gameplay. And so I have the same notion of like, should we mocap a horse? Should I, like, because there's certain things that aren't right. We've got an animator to do some stuff, and they hand do it. And I'm like, God, I feel like I need to
put green dots on like in real life horses.
You could.
That's what I was going to say about.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you that because I love those videos like that.
Ping pong balls
during the summer, like with all the athletes coming in wearing the green dots and like doing different motions. Like, has there been a thought, or have you already done that?
No, we haven't done it for the horses. I mean, the horses don't.
It would make sense.
Yeah, that's good.
Because that's one of the big things with me. Like the aesthetics is like. Have you guys considered putting the green dots on the jockeys, putting them on an equalizer, and just saying, ride like you start the first quarter of the race, ride like you're making a move, and then give me the home stretch, it's completely different motions,
and all we have is we basically just have two. Well, we have two loops. One's sort of standard, the first 3 quarters, and then the second one is when they just start like doing this, and then there's a few whips in between. But again, they're all hand animated. And, I'm, again, sort of a purist about mocap, but it's just like we're a small studio, and I just can't even imagine this idea. Like, we need to get a horse in here. And, but yeah, the jockey we could make better. It's one of those things where we get a little more budget. Once we start getting positive revenue, we'll like do all that stuff.
The horses look fine. The horses just look like 10 men.
I think the horses are okay. The horses are all right.
No, I love the horses.
The horses look good in the gallop and in the normal, but like their turns, the horses don't just like do this, but that helps. But they end up kind of like splaying out sideways a little bit more. So there's some certain things there. Like if you watch this lean, it's just like they're not facing their target as much. So they just kind of lean normal. You can see it right here too. You'll see it as they sort of like bring that up.
That's
I hate to
one of the
pull
other
out,
things,
I hate to point out all the things.
No, see, yeah, you are anal because like
Oh,
I'm
I'm so
watching this,
anal.
it looks perfect. Like
No,
yeah,
I
no
know
way.
the lean you're
looks
talking about.
good.
I know the lean
It's
you're
not
talking
even
about.
close to perfect, but it's
The
good.
thing is too is like, so
It's
we
better than
notice
everything else.
when the longer races for the most part, like we see when these horses go in the first turn, they're just everyone's shooting wide because no one's getting in, no one's adjusting, no one's moving where it's supposed to. Is that something that's like?
Yeah, we've been working on that, and we should have some changes to that pretty soon. Because I think a lot of that is really just like the tuning of the math. Like they all run too close of a time together, and so the first 2 furlongs they're all just like 10, 12 wide, which is clearly not at all what anyone does, and so that's been driving me crazy for years. So we'll actually have some fixes for that because now that people are watching and playing this every day and streaming it and all these other things, whereas on mobile, like no one really saw it or cared. Now it's like it's out there. So to me, like getting this thing to look more and more like real life, shot by shot, is actually pretty important. And so, yeah, having them come into turns correctly and get out of the turns correctly, and then also fall behind instead of 12 wide, is hopefully pretty soon. I would say within a few weeks.
I saw a question in there that actually.
There were a couple.
So Joey D wants to, and it's kind of what you guys were talking about. As it stands right now, with like the random kind of gate selection, that doesn't affect stamina at all, right? Even though you technically run a little. Will it in its final form?
I don't know. I mean, like we try to keep our simulation of the actual times very much a I don't want to say predictable, but like it runs offline. It runs on a server. And so that we can run it over and over again, we can do whatever. And so then what you're seeing on the track is actually just our best guess of a playback of those times, And so that's why you end up seeing these, like they all ran, the first 2 furlongs in 26 seconds or whatever. So they all just kind of ran side by side. And clearly that's like, we need to change the math so that they don't do that. And then also that they need to kind of fall back in. So the actual visualization of what you see does not affect the outcome. The outcome is already determined.
Yeah.
And that's so it's hack proof and all these other there's all these other reasons why we did that. It does make it harder to like kind of retrofit a certain race when horses maybe were way in the back and then they need to actually finish first and we're just sort of like shit, how do we get them through there? That's sort of the tricky part, but yeah, what you're seeing on the track, if you were in an outside position or a first position, none of that stuff actually will affect your result. It's all about your attributes and your match and all that stuff is how it's determined. Nothing you see in 3D is changing the outcome.
Is anything in 3D matter though in terms of like if I have a horse that finishes second, but the way that she finishes second is like she's coming from last to second, is that her style of run or is that just a random aesthetic that you guys are placing to the time?
All that does come from the way that they play back is purely a representation of their attributes.
Oh, really? Okay, so it's almost like you're picking up like times throughout it and where they are at different
furlong by furlong. Yeah,
that's cool. So watching your horse does help you learn about it.
Absolutely, for sure.
That's sick.
Yeah, I mean, you should. That's what we want at the end goal is like, because you don't know exactly what's going on, you should be able to watch this and be like, oh, they're in the back. He sucks at start. Oh, he faded late. That was too long of a race. Like that. Those things should just be like a kind of a gimme of like, well, maybe I'll try 7 furlongs now. Maybe I'll try 6. That type of stuff.
The one advantage in real life is you get to talk to the jockey and see what happened. Like you don't get to do that here, so that
you got to watch it a little bit. Now we did that at Horse Racing Manager. That was actually what we did. The end of each race, he said, "Well, I think he's actually not very good in left turns." He would give you a little clue. But we didn't do that here. But yeah, that's how Horse Racing Manager worked. Is you actually ran 5 or 6 races, and another one. We have thought they might be a little too many, but we also don't know. I haven't dug in yet of like how many people are grinding their horses into the dirt.
That's and like someone also asked that question. I want to click on it. Soul Sorcerer says, seems like in beta injuries are 100% going to happen if a horse is still recovering. Will this be changed?
That's not true. 100%. You just said you ran the shit out of yours.
No, that's what I was going to say. I really want to see the numbers because with stuff like injuries, it's so anecdotal. And when you do get one, it sticks out so much in your mind over all the other races that you ran.
100%.
the first 36 hours, I ran probably even less than that.
I mean, we
Probably
can
closer to
look. We
30.
can count.
I ran
Yeah.
7 races and didn't come up lame. So
Wait.
I think
Let's
I think
finish.
literally we can't even
American
consider
Psycho.
making a judgment until like that's going to be all in the stats, and whatever the stats say,
Yep.
we're going to have to go with that. And like no matter how many times people say that it's happening, if the stats say that it's not, then like it's clear that something like that is like mostly anecdotal. Is that a skill though? Not is that like temper or anything, like ability to not
Yeah.
get hurt? Okay, cool. So like the
It's in
fact
their
that I ran
genes.
7 and didn't get hurt means something. It wasn't that I just got a lucky random recovery.
Well, you could, of course, yeah.
Okay.
But they actually do have a durability gene hidden in there, and that can pass on to offspring too. And one of the things that I haven't quite figured out, I don't know if we show it yet or not, but like there's a very clear, and this is actually this is a great one that you talked about for Madden. One of the first things I did on Madden 10, I remember, was this notion of injury increasing in severity by giving you the choice.
Oh, does he want to come back or does he want to sit out? I would always bring my player back, and then he would always pop
get
his
hurt.
shoulder out and be done for the season.
Yeah, right. But that was your fault. So you didn't
Yep.
feel as screwed. Whereas
Yep.
like in previous Maddens, I remember I lost a guy to a career-ending injury. You know, I'm like, what the hell? Like what?
Yeah.
You know, the career ender, you know, had nothing to do with it. So what we try to do in this is like it's kind of a warning shot. It's like, hey, remember, dude, like don't do that. You know, you got this one injury. And if you keep pushing it, it's not going to go well because now he's got a nagging little, you know, spur in his leg or whatever. And so they should get, as far as I know, this is what we talked about. I haven't checked it lately, but they should get worse and more severe. And more severe, we don't kill them or anything horrible in real life, but they'll just have longer and longer recovery times.
Let me ask you this, Doughboy. And then Ian could answer, honestly, if he wants to as well, but I want to ask it to Doughboy first. If for the purpose of beta, should people be running their horses till they get hurt? If we're using beta for what beta should be used for?
How many times did I yell at you in that text message thread? You're going to kill the horse. No, it's beta. It doesn't matter. You can't get hurt during beta. All right,
No, but don't you think there's a reason that people should for beta? Because that's like one of the biggest data points to get for your horse. Like, how hard can you push it?
That question wouldn't be asked right now if you hadn't run the horse 7 times in 5 hours. But the fact that our horse did not get injured at all and did not actually finish second and fourth, like had a nice stretch and didn't get hurt, whereas other horses are like running one race after like 2 hours into their cooldown and they're nuked. That's, I guess,
we came in first. We came in first when we were like on our 7th race.
I mean, we
didn't get hurt.
We can look at the history. Like,
no, it's right here. I see it right here. We came in first. It was this. Look at the Blair allowance.
4 here. These are all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 races on the 4th. these two were mine, obviously. First, and fourth. But like,
she's a
look
beast.
At that. The Armstrong to rugby, you waited an hour and 20 minutes. Wow.
Yeah,
she's a beast.
Like when Zook was saying about it, I'm like, yeah, we should, like, here's this next race in 5.5 hours, and he just starts laughing at me like I'm like, you loser, we're not waiting 5 hours. Get the horse in the race now.
Run twice. I ran twice by then.
Exactly. But no, I mean, if that's something like if durability is a thing that we can't see on the stat sheet. And during beta, I mean, this is technically a discovery phase, so it's something you can't like now. Maybe you want to look for that. Like, how many races can you go before you get an injury?
Yeah.
You know, is your horse fragile? Like, or do you have the best horse in the world, Zucchina? You know, what do you want?
That's you start with there, and then you kind of work backwards because first you find out that, then you find out whatever that number is, and then you work backwards and you kind of find like, okay, if it can run like a little bit in recovery, what's like the potential ROI or EV positive of running more and more races up to that point. So yeah, beta should definitely be, in my eyes,
discovered
the time if you ever want to get your horse hurt, have it get that now and kind of push it.
Because I saw someone post a screenshot on Twitter like that. My horse got hurt. I have to pay 1,500 crowns or whatever it is. I'm like, oh, this is fucking dope. Like this is juice. This is good. Because like I've
Yeah.
logged so many hours from grade 1 jockey, gallop racer, like championship. I played hours and hours, so many, like just so much time.
Mhm.
And like that's as close as I could have gotten to real horse racing through a video game. And now this is just now we're one step up. So like,
That's awesome.
it's,
Yeah, the
it's
injury
great.
thing is you know, especially the medical bill. You know, those are some things that, like, you know, I never would have thought that we had to do. And it's not like any of these things are actually money makers or any sort of like cash grab thing. They're everything is there to try and remind you that you shouldn't do it that way.
Yeah,
And
it's a
you
penalty.
want, if it's a penalty, and if you get your horse out of that scary world of racing and into breeding, it's smoother sailing and all that. And that's the whole core of the game, because then now every season it's new fun horses. Like if we had a whole army of people grinding every one of their horses, racing 1,000 times, then all we're going to see is the same 8 horses in every single G1 race. And, you know, and it's like, that's horrible. Like, and so that's where we keep going back to, like, you know, the real life thing is like, they've solved this over 150 years of the
And
American thoroughbred racing, you know, that they've made it so that it's interesting every year. So that's why,
when
and it's
the
all these things, you know.
So
when the
boy, let
game
me run to the
kicks,
bathroom real quick.
when the game actually kicks and we're out of beta, what is 1 year in this game?
4 weeks. Yep.
And then breeding is 1 week.
Yep. First week of each, you know, month, relatively. And you know, those are numbers that I guessed at. I'm not sure. It might feel too slow. You can always change the clock,
Another
but the
injury.
idea. Oh wow. Yeah.
Jeez,
Oh man.
that's crazy. This is nuts.
Yeah, I think we might have too many. We don't know though. We're still got to check,
I mean,
because
this
again,
is
like
what
we see them a
happens.
lot, but we also
Yeah.
have the same. We haven't looked into, like, well, is it because they're
This
grinding
is
them?
this is what happens when you turn Zook loose in Discord. He gets everyone to try and run their horses into the ground for science.
Yeah, right.
But
And he's the only one that got lucky.
to stay on the lines of breeding,
Yeah.
breeders awards, breeders funds, like getting kickbacks when your horse wins a race, and like I don't know how it's gonna, like you said, there might be, you know, states or whatever within the game. Obviously, I'm in Pennsylvania, like they run Pennsylvania bred races, and if you have a Pennsylvania bred and you win a non-state bred race, there's a 10% bonus on top of what you won because you were born in this state. Like,
Right. Mm-hmm.
Most importantly, I obviously that's super detailed, you know, but like,
Mm-hmm.
will there be like breeders awards? Like, you know, we just bred our horse, we sold the offspring, it wins a grade 3, it wins a grade 2. Is there a kickback to the original breeder?
That's a good one. I don't think we've actually put that in yet, or that's not the backlog. But I'll make sure I make a note of that. But the one things that we were looking at was really just, you know, I still feel like I'm missing something, but I really feel like the key interesting detail of NFTs and crypto and blockchain in general is this idea of the NFT ownership royalties. And so for us, the two things that we want to do is, number one, if you breed a foal as a mare owner, you are in the creator array. And so therefore, when it sells later, you are getting a kickback of that. So it's like you created it, just like us, you know. So we'll get some, you'll get some. So because the whole thing for me of this community is like, I want to give everyone in this community more and more ways to earn revenue, because then it's like, you guys keep it alive, you know, like that. It shouldn't be like funnel all the money into third time.
We'll spend it
like,
on your game if you keep
yeah,
giving
you'll put it right back in, you know. But no, but
That's
that's
the truth.
key, you know, like that sort of part of the creator array should be that. And then the other one is the full share agreement, which I'm sure you know, Doughboy, just the basically you can choose, instead of studding, say, 100 grand for, you know, stud fee, you could say, well, I'll give it to you for free, but I want half of the full. And it's the same thing, because that's in blockchain,
huge.
you know, and you can just do that in blockchain. It's so much easier compared to real life. Like there's contracts and there's tracking and all this other stuff that you'd have to do. Yeah, attorneys, you know, in blockchain, this sort of notion of like, just fractional ownership is so simple. You know, like all these things are so much easier in the virtual version of it. So, but yeah, I'll look into the other one there.
Yeah, that's one of the things too. It's like I tried to explain, like, because, you know, with horse racing, in real life horse racing, there are, you know, there's the big breeding farms, and then there's the people that had horses that made $150,000 but won the local like yearly big race once in their career, and they didn't clip him, so they stud him. and they'll breed them with their, not great mares. They'll take those foals instead of selling them. They'll say, "Here, have this," because they're gonna. If the horse is good, they're gonna get paid no matter what because of the breeders' funds. So that's.
Yeah, so there's so much to do there that I think is like almost better on blockchain than real life because of the way it works. It's just like when you're minting something new, hey, these 3 people have access to it and ownership. So every time it wins, like we haven't even gotten into sharing purses or any of that. It was really only going to be ownership transfers because that's sort of the typical thing. But we could totally do the same deal. When you do a full share, you could say, well, I'll give you this, but you got to give me 20% of. We could make a contract out of it. There's no reason not to. And I think that's super interesting of like letting the market figure out, well, I'm going to offer you 15% of all my race winnings if you give me the deal or whatever.
If you figure, when this ecosystem is going, there's going to be there's going to be the top trainers, there's going to be top breeders, and then, something has to give. So, some of these breeders could say, oh, I see you're a top trainer. Here, have 2 of these. It's a 50% deal. You take the horses, you give me 50%. That's that's stuff that happens. Like, so that would be dope. Yeah.
I'll answer Dejan's question there, which is
why is breeding at the beginning and at the end? Would love to be racing throughout the season.
So, I mean, breeding, you have to retire them. That was just like the decision that we made. We didn't want people bouncing back and forth between breeding and retiring.
You've added so much anxiety to my life with that decision, though. Like me and Doughboy had already been talking about the game theory that goes into that of deciding when to like retire a horse that you love, even though it may be like the best decision. Is like, oh my God, like keep me up at night.
But it's like, I mean, that is exactly real life. I mean, that is like, do you think Secretariat's owners really wanted to not have that horse win and win and win? No, but it was like, well, there's 50 million waiting for us if we stop racing, and he could die on the track if we don't, so there's like, that part is critical to me, that you do have to make it. And also helps the whole ecosystem when you flush out good horses and then breed better ones, like bring in, or maybe they're worse, but bring in new ones. But yeah, the point of that is that it's a calendar that's smushed. So breeding happens at the beginning of the year so that all the horses are hopefully, the correct age, or, they're the most mature. Now, of course, it's not super real, but it's typically the same deal. In real life, there's a breeding season there. And so it's just about trying to get them. You don't want to have your horse born in December and then now he's a 1-year-old out in January because he's only 1 month old. People don't. These are all these inner weird details of horse racing, but the fact that they don't have actual birthdays, they're only year.
January 1st is every horse's birthday.
What a race! Holy shit! Minor whiff. That 3-1. I want to take a look and see Minor Whiff's finish. My word.
Relationships.
Minor
Whiff? La Playa. I don't know who La Playa
is.
Finished, it's an S- with an S finish. So at the end took it. So
look at the attributes there. The 3, 2.5. That's a strong match.
And this is what I like, and I keep saying about this game. We've seen races happen a certain way that have lined up with distances that we've gone back. And at the beginning of this night, we saw a sprint, and that B+ was able to hang with everyone else because we saw that its start and speed was very good, and it was the stamina and finish that held it back. Right here, here's a horse that we saw in the last few furlongs came back, and we were like, hey, it was probably a good finishing horse. Right here, it's an S-, and this one is one that is an above average S- because it has an S stat without like an A+ to offset it.
Right.
So this is something that you like on top of, like you said, the 3, 2.5 numbers.
Strong horse there. Yep. Mm-hmm.
This is 4.
Good breeder.
Oh, that didn't even register yet. So it's going to be a 40% winner with 5 races at 2-0-1. That's great, and it looks to be kind of discovering itself at this 11 furlong left dirt. I'd be interested.
Yeah, so how did he do so poorly on this long mile cup? I mean, 5th, and that was the same left dirt soft, right?
Some S's,
just bigger, better competition.
Yeah, just better competition, and it was a grade 1. So you're gonna get better.
He's a G2.
And
control minus Zook.
Sorry, I'm interested to see if this one we just watched was firm, because that would mean the 211 furlongs that
It was
firm
soft.
he won.
It was rainy, I think.
Right there at the bottom.
That makes it interesting. Because that adds to the soft with a 3 and a 5.
See,
He
and
really
that's
wants to go back and test another firm, and if he podiums there, then he kind of knows. And me and Doughboy have done that, and that's one reason I like the, one race a day, even sometimes one race every other day. Like if you have a niche, you find that niche.
Wait for it. Yeah.
Like me and Doughboy, 10 to 12 furlongs, left, turf, hopefully firm. If we can get
Hope
that.
it's clear. Yeah,
If
right.
it's clear. Like
Hope it doesn't rain.
so early. But like
What's ours?
we're fine with that. And we're fine. We're just doing that as much as we can.
What is Zucchina? She's 1.5 on the.
She's 3.3 1.5, I think.
We've had how many races now? 10, 11? Like one race has been on firm. The rest have all been soft. And she's 1.5 out of 3 on soft. Like,
okay. Well, that's good. You want a soft one, yeah. Mm-hmm.
She's very similar to the horse that we just saw with the above S minus with an S finish. She has 20 boosts, which is really good. I looked it up on Racer's Edge, and there's only 29 S or S minus with over 20 boosts. So I really, really like that. And again, it's still early, and this is just me hypothesizing and also being biased. But when I look at finishes, I tend to think that some of these that I know had 3, like stamina and speed, are really, really high S minuses when we're talking about the ratio. So I think on top of potentially getting a really, really decent S finish as well, that's why we're able to, even though we haven't won, which is something you got to get comfortable with in horse racing, like this second for 8,000 was up against some really, really good S's and S minuses where our 12 to 1 odds hung. And if you watch this race, we were basically in first or second the whole time.
I mean,
just us and D
It's up there.
Yeah.
Right. Let me put it on mine. Yours is very choppy.
Yeah, and I can't. Yeah, take over. Mine sucks, and I don't even have Wi-Fi. This is. This is connected to the wall Verizon. That's how much of a scam it is.
Which one was that? That was the one we ran second. Was that the grade 2?
Monopoly Great.
Monopoly Great Stakes. D-Negs took it. Ian, what's I know a lot of people have asked this. Is there any confirmation on the answer in terms of re-roll of horse abilities outside of beta?
No, not yet. Still looking.
Okay.
Like I've mentioned before, it's not really a roll. Like there's not really a big like random throw them in a sack and dice roll and all this stuff. Like
be a reset.
Yeah, we've actually determined all the stats already. We did a big algorithm to figure out where they all land and how they work, and we double checked to make sure the genetics weren't all like piled into one region, so that we do have like a good spread of genes once they start breeding. But there have been things that have showed up that just like didn't quite make sense. So we're double checking those. The S pluses is the clear one that they just ended up with like no preferences, and that's where they lose almost every race. And so that was just like too much of a nerf. So we may just like hand touch those. That those could be.
Okay.
We're still looking though. I mean, again, after I had that town hall, I said, people email, and there were maybe like 8 or 9 people that dropped in a message that said, hey, I had a 3 boost A+, and I ended up like very low. Can you check? So we're still looking at those.
Yeah. So okay. And again, I know you can't confirm it, but from what you're saying, I'm thinking it's more so that if you got a roll that you should have gotten, you can feel pretty comfortable that you'll probably stay with that. It's more so like you're actually going in and not re-rolling, like legit fixing purposely.
I doubt it, yeah. Like I said, I mean, the only thing I was curious about was like there was one person that put in that they had a 3 boost like stamina or something, and they ended up with a B+ in stamina and A pluses and everything else. And I was just like, that doesn't make sense. And so that was my worry, is like, is that a systemic problem with the whole thing that we didn't see, or is it just like something random happened there? And so that was what I was looking at, like, because if it's systemic, then we're going to change the whole algorithm, and then I don't know what'll happen, but I'm feeling pretty good that it's not that. I'd say probably 75% chance right now that I feel pretty confident on it. So we'll see though. We'll find out soon.
Because we like Zucchina, so we want.
Yeah, you don't want it to change. I mean, most people don't really want anything to change. They're okay with the result, even if it was low. But then there's a few like the S pluses again. I think it's like those are the most rare, the most expensive. Like those should be great, and they're not. They're losing every race. It's like they don't have to win every race. They don't have to like browbeat everyone, but they can't lose every race. They are. I mean, they were not only were they the cut above. I mean, they were like exponentially above everyone else in terms of rarity. And so for them to just be like losers is wrong, and it wasn't intended. So got to figure that out.
I get that. I got one more question. Then the race after this we'll call, and then we'll sign off for the night. We appreciate you hanging out, and I hope we can do this a bunch. I hope you can tell we're kind of big fans of this game. So any night that you want to hang out with us, we're happy to hang out. But my question is, we've talked about the different, S minus, S, B plus, A, whatever it is. At the end of the day, the ones that were first were all the Generation 0 horses. In the long term, in its final form, this is a working ecosystem when we're down generations and generations and generations. What is the value and importance of Generation 0 throughout time of this game?
Yeah, I mean, that comes up a lot. I mean, obviously, you have this huge advantage right now of being like months ahead of everyone else. If you were starting to breed, you have this huge start. You have multiple offspring well before anyone else, so there's like this core to being early that is great. I think the other part is like if full share agreements and other sort of rev share parts of, the blockchain are linked in with your offspring, there's another key part. Like the pyramid, you're at the top, like everything came down off of you. And so everything's feeding back up. And, we're not going to allow every rev share all the way down the chain, because then it's like, where do the profits go? It's kind of insane. But like even still, if you had gotten a Gen 0 and then you also made Gen 1s and Gen 2s and Gen 3s because no one else could get any, that's the first time that by the time Gen 3 comes is when racing will start. So you have all that time where no one else is racing, but those, sets, like you could have, a pretty deep family tree, genealogy built out of your stable that also has offspring and royalties and they are, a few of them have a huge stud fee because they are known champions and winners. I mean, it's just sort of like that's the benefit of the Gen 0 is sort of like, could you have the tappet that every single person that joins the ecosystem later is like, I got to get at least one full out of tappet. I gotta throw my mare at tappet and see how it comes out. I gotta throw my mare at American Pharaoh and see how it comes out. So that's sort of the idea, is like in that first chunk here where there's no other competition because the bloodlines haven't started rolling, it's sort of like it's fledgling. I think that's the big advantage. But then after that, I don't know, they eventually do die, they go away. They turn into a plaque. But even still, there's hopefully all their offspring are still alive, and then their offspring are still alive, and then like that. That's sort of the whole point.
So it really signifies like that kind of, if you got a Gen Z horse, the time and place that you were here was at a time of, like you're saying, you have such an early mover advantage because of what you can build out before there's so many more horses in here, and obviously the competition you're potentially up against is less. Obviously, anyone that's a first champion, you're kind of known as the champion, so people could forever see you. Like you can get at it, like you can race in, like when this thing goes live, it's obviously in its first few months, its first few years, isn't going to reach its full like community. Right. Obviously, there'll be tons of people. You can be a champion in a much weaker field and then kind of carry that legacy through retirement when this game gets harder with a horse who knows if it would be as competitive when the landscape gets more competitive. But like you're saying, you're in a time and space where there's less horses. You kind of control a higher percentage of the ecosystem as you breed down. And really that just early mover advantage that is obviously clear when you look at horse racing and building lineages and how people go back to the well. If you have a champion and you're able to create more champions, obviously getting a stab at that kind of scientific formula as many times as possible before the next person does just raises your value like instrumentally. Because as we know, as much of a science as it is, you're going to put some things together sometimes in this, and you're just not going to get sometimes the exact great horse that you expected. Not even just once, like a few times potentially. Like, that's just the nature of the game. So you do need literally as many opportunities as you can get before the next guy does, because they are, invaluable in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, if there was, let's say, for example, we launched in a couple months, and now we've got 6 to 7 months before next year's Kentucky Derby, and every year's Kentucky Derby is when there's this huge influx of new players. There's obviously lots of people searching for it. All of that happens. So now all of a sudden you get this huge rush of 10,000, 50,000. I don't know how many players that want to get in. They get their first horse and they want to breed it. That sort of like feeling of like, there's the stud farm. There's hundreds of studs on there, and 4 of them are yours that actually have, not only do they have a winning record, they were a champion, they won a few G1, they were black type, but they also have progeny with all these other records, that no one else has gotten to yet. And it's just like, that's such an advantage of like, oh man, Ian's horse is a winner, and he's got 32 foals that have also been black type winners, So that's the thing, is just getting in early, and then like planting the seed. I hate to say it like that, but really getting it out there is such a cool and exciting thing. I'm so excited for the community to be able to do it. I mean, it just like warms my heart thinking about these horse racing manager players that have been here since 2018, and it's like, hey guys, if you just do what you did over here now, like, you will be celebrities. In this area, people will be dying to get your info to try and breed with your stable, because you guys have all the info, you've got all the experience, So anyway, and I think the other part that's really cool about it, I guess, is that like, I love the way the system works, that new people can come in and be better than the old people. So part of that is sometimes hard to swallow. It's like, all these Gen Zeros are actually not the best horses in the game, whereas that's been the opposite in almost every other like blockchain deal. But I think that's so critical to like gain over time. Like this game is much more a breeding strategy simulator, long-term game, which is still kind of passive, but it's like, just do it over time and you'll get better and better and better, instead of like the first people that bought in just feed off of the minnows that come later, which I think I saw that happen at FanDuel, and it was like these people putting in 10,000 bot, lineups, and just like every idiot that's like, oh, I can win $1 million, and they put in their one lineup, and like, you're not going to win, So I like this notion of really being able to come in later and still really compete at any time, because all the horses are dying.
Yeah. And like you're saying, Gen Z may not be the best horse, but then again, the value in them is get the horse that creates the best
other ones.
Potentially, or get the horse that creates the horse that then creates. So I like that aspect of it, and kind of like once a day, I think is kind of perfect. Me and Doughboy have been doing it, where I've been kind of putting in races where every day I shoot for like 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. to get horses in like that time. It's like a ritual. We watch, we talk about it. When that race is done, we put it in for like the next day. We hop in the Discord. Like, we're still engaged without like, being on the site and having to put in like 10 different races with a horse, like for qualifying or something like that. But it's such a different engagement, and such a more like pleasant engagement and ritualistic, where, I'm not like dying or ever feel like, I'm like driving home to like get on the site because I gotta like get in for something. Like, I have time. It's relaxed. Like, it's once a day. I'm still thinking about it, because once a day is still a type of ritual thing where it's still always on the top of your mind, but also not enough where like it's not a hobby that like stresses you out at all at this point. And it can, and there will be people that do this.
20 horses. It's hard.
And hopefully there are like people that do this for a living, which we all hope it gets to that. It's going to stress you out, and it should, if you want to make it off that. But it's nice to also have a method to play with high quality horses and grow a stable smaller, where, like I said, It's not stressing us out. We know if it's not between like 9 a.m. or 10:30, we're not racing. It's once a day. We still sit and we'll watch like other races. One thing about beta is, well, one thing that I'm excited about beta to get finished with is once these horses get their final names, then me and Doughboy can actually start cooking. Because I'm even realizing now I'm starting to remember some names. Like I know Arbitrage's horses are like old school, decent Minnesota Vikings. I know some other ones like D-Nags, Longshanks is in here. There's a bunch of other horses that I know, but I know that those horses' names can technically change. But as this becomes
at
like
the real game, yeah, right.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
only they can't change it in the real game. Yeah.
Yeah, when we get out of beta. So once that happens, I feel like that's almost going to be like the final nail in the coffin of, hey, now this is like an esport that we start like saying these same names over and over and over again. And that then, drives value to the horses just by people knowing who they are, word of mouth. They legit have names. Names, I've always said, are super important. You get a good one that people like, that in a sense has a value. So yeah, there's just a
Make
lot.
merch for them, and
exact whole brands around names that like you got to think strategically and like don't just breed a horse and have like some inside joke of the moment that like you think is funny and waste a name on that. Like when you can get a name of potentially maybe an upper incoming brand that is thinking about getting into this space that could reach out to you. So there's so much to do with this, and it's so much fun. But
finish here 6.
There's a lot.
Yeah, man, I'm so excited. Like I said, it's so great to have you guys on, and or have me on, and just like have you guys on the platform and playing it. And I love all the feedback. Obviously, Doughboy getting to meet somebody else that, just my background. I didn't grow up on horse racing. I grew up playing football video games, and my grandfather was an NFL coach, and I lived in the NFL world forever. And so the horse racing's been, very much a crash course. I've driven out to Ocala to try and learn, what the hell's going on in the sport. So it's always great to meet people that, do have that authenticity thing for me, because I just want to always make it perfect,
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on, or like not even thoughts, like is there anything in the future timeline for like custom events or like big time events that like you guys are going to throw? Because as much as we're asking and trying to talk about as much educational stuff as we can during this, that's not where me and Doughboy come at most of these. A lot of times we just like to stream the races, have great events, and like hit it from that side. What has been like the internal talks on that side of things with this game?
Yeah, I mean, the one of the biggest things that we haven't implemented because the timeline is so short in the beta is I don't call it a triple crown because that's trademarked. So quadruple crown -1 basically is what we call that. But the idea of the 4-week season is built around this Grand Slam of every Saturday night. We're going to have a big event of the big G1 race. It'll be the Derby, the Preakness, the Belmont, but our own versions until we eventually license all that stuff. But regardless, that's the way. And then if you're familiar with the Kentucky Derby, there's a race, road to the Derby where you have to qualify with points. So we have that system too. So people are actually having to fight their way up each one. And it's kind of like the NASCAR style, golf style. And so we want to do that for each one, though. So Preakness doesn't do that. Belmont doesn't do that. But we were going to probably do that for each week, so that like you've always got something on the line. There's always like a flag in the distance of like, if you're trying to get up in the G1 of like, okay, I got to knock out these 3 qualifiers. I got to get enough points to get into the big one, because that's where all the money is. And those are the ones that we could juice the pots. We could get sponsors, because it's going to be Saturday night. We'll stream them live. We'll make a big deal out of it, that kind of thing. And then the people that could actually win all 3, the fake Trace Coronas or whatever, triple whatever.
The triple chalice.
Yeah, the triple chalice. Yeah,
triple chalice.
That's good. I might need to trademark that real quick.
That's fine.
Or the Grand Slam.
At least you asked, you know what I mean? That's all I asked. Just ask. That's it.
Or the Breeders' Cup would be the 4th one. The fake Breeders' Cup would be in the final one. And so if somebody could pick up the Grand Slam, those are badges that would be on people's profiles, and the horse would have, the cup in his profile. And so then when you go to breed, you're like, holy shit, that's the one. That's the guy. He won all 3. So yeah, we would love to make you say an esport. I think it can absolutely do this, where everyone has a calendar.
Oh, it will.
Saturday nights. Saturday nights, we all crack, mint juleps, and And we just like tune into the races. We have commentators. Maybe you guys are commenting. Maybe whatever. But it's like actual real thing.
When you were talking about that, because like now we know that our Saturdays are booked because that's definitely
tough. UFC horse racing. I don't know what I'm gonna do.
We'll have to pick. We'll have to go a little bit earlier or something. But but yeah, that's definitely the plan. And we have a lot of that built. It just doesn't work because we smooshed the schedule down. It'd be like Tuesday at 4 would be one of them. And
I've always wanted to do with Zed, and again, like I would love to do with you guys is like we called like one charity thing with like Larry Colmus, but like for you guys specifically, like as you're building out these other tracks, I would like to use like either contacts that we have, or obviously you have more contacts with like who you have to like, if those nights, like say we're doing this in December because of the virtual nature of it, and those race callers are like off season. Right. Race callers love this shit, and like they love to just get involved and like have fun. So if we were at a track, like we did, like each Saturday night, you like put at a specific track, and we found a way to like get that guy on with us, and like he could call our races, like as we break it like down the line. But like when it's his off season, he's now almost working like the virtual track, and like we can kind of do it like that. Like that would be crazy. And again, like the one thing about this space, like you say about it being niche, it's also die hard. So like someone like Larry Colmus, who's the biggest name in the game, it was like one tweet. He's like, yeah, I'd love to do this. Like calling race horses, like it's like so much fun. So I don't think
Randy Moss with us too is just like, hell yeah, sounds cool. What do we want to do?
Exactly.
It's immediate.
If you were to set something up like that, like it just fits. Like it's like a night at the track virtually. It's already the style that people like this, like going out for a night of dinner, like at the track. Like now it's like you bring in and you put up on your big screen like the Twitch channel, and you make sure like if we let you know earlier in the week when it's happening, as you said, it's going to be structured, a schedule every Saturday. Get your Saturday night, get your horse rested so it can be fully recovered for a race on Saturday.
And qualified.
And then qualify it, hang out, and do stuff like that. But no, that's awesome. And even
betting on it, DJ beer.
Beer on a Saturday with photo finish sounds like a plan. But no, that's even. I know we're getting way advanced and we're talking like very ahead of ourselves. And I know, and this actually ties, and this could be the final question, and someone brought it up, and it's a fully good encompassing. That's even something that I know we can work together with like the Knights of DGen who we're streaming with to like do something with that, because that's the shit that like we're legit trying to build in terms of events and streams and like cool stuff with that. And like they have the community of like DGens and people that will bet on the horse races and then buy stuff as well. So those two communities fit well, and that's why the light bulb hit. And then the third one that Jay Gills asked about much earlier, and I highlighted it, but I wanted to save to the end, is how does this fit into your other project with Sweets? And can you just touch a little bit on the potential of Sweets, knowing that people that are watching this are either photo finish people or on the other side, Knights of DGen people, and they're all about like gambling on sports, virtual gambling and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, we do envision the Sweets being it's been coined a little bit internally here as sort of like the social glue around a lot of this, because right now we're all in Discord, and then the races are up on another screen, and sometimes you're texting him, hey, get the guy out of the thing, and so can we have a 3D world where you're all running around and punching each other and doing stupid stuff and whatever, chatting, all this sort of stuff, like a 3D version of Discord. Yeah, there's too many. And that level of social experience, and then you just go over to the guardrail, you walk down to those red seats right there and you see them tear past, in 3D. And so, and like put the bet in, go walk over to the betting window, put in your derby bet on them. I think they just fit really well together. The suite being, connected to the track, and then you can go back in there, and there's all kinds of stuff inside the suite. But you could exit and go watch the race, or you could watch it through the window, I guess. But that's where we've sort of fallen in. Yeah, 2 breakdowns. Yeah, there's too many. We were talking about this morning of like, I think there's too many. But
it's Zook's fault.
What?
Like, all these horses are breaking down because you had to test fate and run 7 times in 1 day.
Peter's fault. Everyone's trying to break her record of running 7 in a day and not getting hurt. But again,
we did talk about, like, I think we don't show what it is, but a lot of these, like we have internally, like it could just be a scrape or something. Like it actually doesn't have any recovery time. It's just something. So right now they pull up all the way lame. They look like they broke something, you know. So we just got to get that. Yeah, it could just be something that like, oh, he just kind of, you know, he reared and then he's out of the race, you know, or like some sort of stumble.
There is a thing it's called bolting in real life. Like when they go into the turn, instead of going to the turn, they keep going straight. That's it.
Yeah.
So like that
that's it. Like that race over. That's a good one too, because I mean, that's what the temper type of stuff is meant to, you know, be there for. Is like, you know, I watched that documentary the other day of American Pharoah and all of his foals and his sort of breeding. It's on YouTube, like 6 parts or something. But it was just interesting how they're like, you know, his temper was it. You know, it was like the fact that he was so well mannered and chill, and all of the people wanted to get a foal that was of that mindset of, you know, just easy to train and easy to take care of. Whether he was going to be as fast, they didn't know, but it was like, we just want that, you know, style of temper. And I was like, oh man, this is awesome. This is like, it just keeled it right in of like, that's what we got to make sure the perfect temper horse is like that. They just follow instructions, you know, they perform well and they're not like
professionals.
They're professionals. Yeah, that's a good way to do it.
There's 2 types of horses that walk on the track in the morning. There's professionals and there's assholes. Like, you get a professional that they're here, they show up, they know what they're here to do, they get it done.
Get right in the gate, you know.
And there's ones that, you know, kick and buck the whole way up the horse path to get on the track, and then they just wild out while they're on there too. It's a fascinating game you live in.
The Rich Strike, you know, victory, like that one also really kind of keyed it in as like we're trying to assume, like obviously he does have freakish speed and finish if we were putting him in attribute forms, but a lot of it has to be some level of like he had very poor temper and has possibly underperformed in all of his other races until that one where he was just juiced and perfect, everything lined up perfectly.
Yeah.
Because then after the race, you can see he's like biting the, you know, the mare. It's like, you know, so he's an asshole. So yeah, I think that's all those things are like inspirations for us of like, well, that's the archetype of, you know, very unpredictable horse, you know, and that's what he's bad. He's poor tempered is the way we would do that.
Oh boy, I'm learning. This one said rainy and I stayed out of it.
Oh, you didn't even consult. I love it.
Wait, I thought you had yours was soft. Isn't your?
Well, what's it's a 1.5 out of 3 for soft.
You want to be on soft.
So does that mean soft?
Yeah, it means your preference is soft.
So 1.5 soft is in the middle. 1.5 like so in the middle would be 0 soft.
Mm.
So I'm actually it's between 3 and 3. So 1.5 is
Yeah, it's a little tricky. I mean, you know, we wanted to do like in the horse racing manager, we had ratings for both. We had a rating for soft, like 1 to 3 stars, and a rating for firm, 1 to 3 stars. The problem was that people they were so good over time that they bred up both to be great at everything. Like they basically all of them bred by the end of this, you know, 4 years in, however long. It took a long time, but it's still they had all the horses were great at mud and not. They were great at left and right, great at, you know, dirt and grass. And so it was like, so then they would just enter into any race they saw, which was lame. So that's what we changed it to like, no, there's actually just one. And so you move over into that direction, you know, let's say you're 1.5 over into dirt, 2 into dirt, 3 into dirt. Let's say you breed with a grass horse. Well, now you're going back the other way, 2 into dirt, 1 into dirt, 1 into grass, 2 into grass, 3 into grass, turf, sorry. So that's how it works. So yeah, you've got a poor, I mean, the thing with your horse is like with 1.5, that's not all that great. So it's not all that different on either one. So you actually, you know, you would probably prefer soft, but she is not going to actually perform all that much better. A little bit.
In a really tough race the other day, in a left-leaning race, the horse that came in first was like a right-leaning or a right direction horse. So it's interesting that you're saying that. And again, just to make sure I understand. So if it's a 3 out of 3, like right, could it also be like a 2 out of 5 left? No, so it's bad.
0. It's a 0 on left.
Okay, so I just want to make sure.
It's not bad. It's just it's in the middle. It's in the
Okay.
middle on left. It has no preference to
So
left.
there's okay. So everything else would have to take over. like in that, like to fit perfect, and with a bunch of other horses who maybe like were on the wrong track or on the wrong distance, and it was okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Let me bring that.
I mean, you know, some of this stuff also has like, you know, magic. But that's how we've always built it. And that's all the HRM players know as well.
Second, was it this one? Was it Cool Fire Monk? Yeah, Cool Fire Monk. This horse, let me.
That one, you're looking good. So that's a 12 furlong.
Sorry, yeah. This is Cool Fire Monk. This horse won my long distance left.
Wow.
Yeah, and I guess I'm telling you, heart's the most important thing in this game.
Oh, S plus heart. No, that is pretty good.
The S plus, I get an overtake. I'm telling you, the S plus heart can help you counteract other stats that maybe don't make sense because.
And temper, that's good. So that's a solid horse.
It just jumbles it up, and it has the skill, and it just took how good it was at right and made left. I believe that.
I wouldn't expect that. I mean, like, again, I try to actually not know the exact formulas because it's better that way. Like Paul knows them, but I try to not know them. But I do know in Horse Racing Manager, like if you didn't match, at least in the late game of that, if you didn't match everything 3-3, like you're gonna lose. But this is still early. A lot of people still experimenting. No one's bred a monster yet.
We've got 3 minutes and 40 seconds till this final race. I'll call it.
Nice. I'll answer this Penny's question. Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah, it's not really degenerative, but it's basically we try to make it on you. If you keep pushing them, you will continually get penalized worse and worse. We want you to, and then all of the horses have a peak age, sort of like built into their genes that is also hidden. And so you'll see like as they fall way out of that curve, like they're just going to get hurt more. It's just one of those signs to you, like, hey, probably time to put them out of stud. Trying to put them in the farm.
Injuries speed up peak age, or will the injuries just become more and more severe, but you'll still get to that peak age?
Yeah, okay. We try. I think so. I mean, all that stuff has fudge and stuff.
Yeah, of course.
And try to not make it perfect, but we try to not have, even though we're as real as it gets, we try to not injure the horses at the beginning of the career when they're the best they've ever been. Like it's just like, especially when people are. It's an NFT game, maybe over time we'll add more stuff like that, but we're trying to really not like, hey, you just paid $2,000, thanks, yoink, and we just like kill him. We don't want to do that. So that's pretty shitty.
Me and Doughboy are definitely in the minority because of what you said. I think rings true with more people, but I love the fact that now I have an NFT that can get hurt. Like I know that's like a weird thing to say, but like that create like that's real. Like if what could happen in real life can now happen in the virtual world, that's when you get the crossover. If we're going to create new rules for what's going on in the virtual space, then there's always going to be that divide where the crossover fence is still going to be higher and higher. Like now with doing the same thing that's happening in the real world, that just basically almost takes out the fence, and like you just see those blends where people are going to own photo finish stables and real life stables, and because they operate in the same way, they don't really have to change what they have to do. There's a lot less maintenance wise on the photo finish side.
Cost, yeah.
They still know in terms of they can't race till they get hurt, how they want to breed, how they want to match things up, things that they've used in the real world, different combinations that maybe someone like me that's only bred horses by having Z horses and using that RNG. Like I would think, just put horses with similar preferences together. Maybe in the real world, there's specific combinations that I would never think of that someone like you or someone like Doughboy would be like, I did this one time and it worked. Let me try it here. So that ability of clearing those boundaries opens up and raises that ceiling quite a bit for the ability for quick crossover.
Mm-hmm. No, it's stuff that you can learn. It's a long game, and I think that strategy is just kind of like something that you can pick up over time, and you don't have to though. You can just breed two that look close, and you're probably going to be fine. But then when you want to get to that next level, there's always that level of depth there for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
And we're trying to make it, kind of uncrackable, so.
I feel like I get what you're saying. Like, if you take the general safe route and you put like two good things together that have the same preferences, you'll probably more times than not get something decent wise that fits that. But again, if you want to create that killer and maybe you don't have like the greatest of inputs, you will have to, like you said, take that deeper, put preferences that maybe make no sense together, but that's the perfect potion combination that you've seen others try. So like the depths of it, just tie really hand in hand with your answer to what's the value of generation 0. Think about the amount of different things that we just listed. Like, you need time to prove those things out. So if I'm here for a year before you and I retire a horse a year before you get here, that gives me 12 opportunities to try different combinations. And right there is the value of a Gen Z horse.
Yep.
This is an 8 furlong, right, dirt, soft race, last of the night. Trillions, Lonely Masker, Rougine, Mary Antoinette, Red Cloud, Frosted Flakes. Out of these 6 on the leaderboard, another 2 join us. The one that is the favorite is in first, Trillions. Lonely Masker in third, also matching Trillions at 4-1. No one really making a move yet. Trillions still pushing the pace. Mary Antoinette, Red Cloud, Lonely Masker. These are the top 4. Behind them, Super Bad now makes his way into the leaderboard, as well as Rogue of Styles. Trillions with an incredible lead around the last corner and officially down the stretch on the outside. Lonely Masker, the other 4-1 horse. There's no surprise of the 2 at the top of the leaderboard. Both favorites, Trillions versus Lonely Masker. Down the final furlong of this race, and the favorite, Trillions, will take this Bluegrass Maiden, followed by Lonely Masker, Rogue Styles in third. So a 4-1, 4-1, 16-1 in this 8 furlong, right-leaning Bluegrass Maiden. Trillions is La Jolla Farms. Lonely Masker is Sleeping Air. You always get excited for a maiden win because you know what that means. So very, very cool for Trillions and the owner of that horse to get their first win tonight.
I guess you've never been to La Jolla.
No, what do I call it?
La Jolla or something.
You'll come to catch on to Zook's mispronunciations and misspellings of words.
Or Marie Antoinette. You never heard that?
Yeah, there's a lot of people
Mary Antoinette.
They name a horse a certain way, but then I say it out loud a different way, and then that's the way that just the community picks up on it, and it's just, hey, it is what it is. Grammar's overrated. English is overrated. I'm a math and science person.
You know what I meant. That's all that matters.
It is. But no, this was a lot of fun, Ian. We appreciate you giving us almost 2 hours, and we could probably honestly keep on going, but how about we agree to save it for sometime soon as we keep going with beta. The great thing about beta is so much is being released on like a daily basis. So I'll probably reach out to you over the next coming weeks, and we can legit just do what we did this time. More and more stuff will get released. More and more people will race different horses, experience different things. Start noting those if you're in the chat, and probably in the upcoming weeks, we'll do this again. We'll have a night where we watch some races. We'll have Ian come up and answer some chat questions. And no, I think everyone here is very, very happy from anything that people thought beta was going to be. I know me and Doughboy had high expectations for beta, especially Doughboy. We were blown away. So, like I've said, once a day, we're engaged between 9 and 11, like a religion, like going to church. We're watching our horse Zucchina. So we're excited. We're excited to see where this keeps going. We're always looking to continue to build out our stable. Through playing some other games, I've learned how I kind of want to attack this game, and I'll just tell the chat because I don't think it's a secret. Me and Doughboy are we're saving up. I'm just going to attack like high quality mares. Like, I'm just someone that, look, with my base bankroll, I can kind of operate in that arena. And instead of making tinier purchases along the way, we have our first Z minus mare, and yeah, we'll breed her out when the time comes, but we're not going to probably purchase any new horse until we can save up again to either get an S- or an S mare, and that's how we really want to attack it. A few like really, really big, expensive matriarchs to just breed down and kind of focus on them. I know for me, my experience with other games and Doughboy with that plus how he's done it in real life, that's just, the way we've decided that we wanted to go about it. The great thing is we've talked to a bunch of other people that, there's a million different ways to go about it. So it's exciting to see, which way that more and more people choose. But no, Doughboy, anything else from you, from Ian, if you let him go?
Appreciate you sitting down with us, honestly, and getting to
super
chop
fun.
it up. But yeah, anytime, ping me anytime you want to have a chat about, if you have ideas, like, any IRL questions you have, feel free to ping me. Like I said, I've been in the trenches. I woke up at 3:30 in the morning to get my horse ready to go to the track and train. I scrubbing water buckets. And I've done it all. Like, I grew up day one. It's in my blood, man. Horse racing is like something that'll never leave my life. And my life is better when horse racing is in it. So, like, I'm like not a super fan. It's just one of those things. It's like that's where my heart is. Like, I love horse racing, and this game is just like, yeah. Dude, I've been, like I said, I've been hyped about this game because, like, whenever before the new year, whenever a new horse racing game would pop up, it would always circulate Zed Twitter and other Twitters and stuff. And it doesn't have this, it doesn't have this, and like I would always be in the side chat. Yo, photo finish. This is realistic. Like, I have the app. Like, I sent Zuka a screenshot. I was playing the one where you're the jockey and you I guess it's not photo finish live, but
just photo finish.
Recent one is, just photo finish. Like, I have that on my phone. Like, I was messing around with that when I'm on the train in the morning. So, like, yeah, dude, this game, I look forward to producing content for this as well and streaming it more often. Like, I'm definitely here for this one. This is
awesome.
Good stuff.
Yeah, no, we'll be in touch for a future Q&A sometime really soon. But again, I know we touched on it a little bit. If during beta we ever want to test any like of those Saturday night kind of bonanzas, just hit me up. We can hop on a call, the three of us with Jigga as well, and we can kind of take that portion away from you so you guys can kind of focus on the actual race stuff. And we'll obviously love help, throwing the streaming side of it. And then, we have the philosophy that anyone in the chat as well, at any point that they're racing, on a night like that or even a night like tonight, if you're in the chat and you want to come up and hang out while your horse races up and then stay on afterwards if you win, like, always feel free. So, we'll be in touch about a Q&A and also about potentially throwing a beta Saturday night because I think if you know the people in this space, that's something that is legit right up their alley, a Saturday night hangout session on the virtual track. So that seems to be a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we can't wait. The feeling of having a derby once a month, the derby party once a month is going to be awesome. So, yeah.
And it's what this space has worked up to, and it really brings out the in real life virtual world crossover that I really think whichever blockchain community captures the most. As far as we're trying to get away from in real life, actually whoever can encapsulate that and cross over the best into in real life, I think will win. So doing stuff like that where you get people together at a certain time in a certain place, like, when Breaking Bad was on or Game of Thrones or just, must-see TV, that just creates a community and allows things to last the test of time. But like Doughboy said, we're super excited to continue to make content for this. I know Jigga Man, who also does with us, we're going to talk about, we're moving forward with producing a lot of things, and obviously we want to do specific stuff just for photo finish. So I think this Saturday night thing could be right up our alley. So let's stay in touch about that because I think that's something that in beta is definitely a great example of showing off photo finish of exactly what it can be when it's in its almost finalized product and throwing a night like that. So let's put our heads together and we'll work towards something like that in the future.
Yeah, you got it. Awesome, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Have a great night.
Appreciate it.
Discord. Later.
Go.
I can't really end it any better. You know what I mean? That's just dope. Like, what more can you ask for?
No, I mean, this is a sick game. Like, this is an incredible. Like, watching all these races are dope. And we didn't give him that much. We were having great conversations, so we didn't call him as much as we do on a normal stream. But yeah, Saturday night stream where it's just a stakes that we're focused on is holy shit. That would be fun.
Just like a lineup, a card of just graded races.
Yeah, and like as if we have 15, 20 minutes in between, we'd go through all of them. We'd look at what the odds are, match that up to what are the S, what are the S plus, what's this, what's that. So that's a lot of fun. Before we head out, though, the one thing I have to show off is we're doing the ZTRV tournament this Friday. Look into that. It's going to be live. It's going to be a lot of fun. The TRV races, the TRV fights are on their site now. They launched at 7 p.m. tonight, and they start at either 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. on Friday. They're called the KOD Metaverse Massacre. If you go on their site, scroll down and look then. And then the other half of it is the Z tournament. It goes from 8:30 to 12:30. That's a shit ton of fun. It's massacre. We're throwing it massacre style. That means that every hour the scoring changes. The first hour is Fibonacci, the second is pity point, the third is reverse, and the fourth is Fibonacci again. You have to run your horse once an hour, so you have to run it in each style of racing. Let's see who knows their horse the best. You have to run it backwards, you have to run it forwards, you have to run it in the middle. Going to be tons of fun. If you guys remember last time when we called TRV races, that was fucking sick.
The fights were great.
Yeah, the fights are nice, and we're doing a half hour in between fights, so we'll actually have time to look into races as well and break down some fights beforehand, and not just bounce back and forth. So it's going to be every half hour of the fights. In between will be Z racing. We'll just be doing live races as well, where we'll be streaming tournament races, and on top of it, if we throw in any of the Knights horses and you hop in that race, and you beat us and win the race, 25 Z dollars. Will go to you, which is a lot of fun. This one is a 0.003 WEEF buy-in, which is like $5. All of the buy-in will go back to the prize pool, as well as if you win the tournament, you get a champion from TRV, which is sick. Second place, a horse, which is sick. So definitely check that out. It's here on Knights of Degen. Scan the QR code, or hit me up, and I can send you a link to the Google Doc what that QR code takes you to. And all you got to do is fill out the QR code. It's self-explanatory. It has all the rules. Again, Friday night this weekend from 8 p.m. Eastern Standard. It will be me, Doughboy, Jigga, Dylan will be on. I think Treyway is now, I think he's on now regularly Friday Night Live, which is dope. We'll have him. I think his schedule will change for now. He could be on instead of being recorded, so that'll be a lot of fun. I'm going to hit up DiCatrio. He was with us for the last TRV. He'll probably pop on. He's a great dude. So yeah, it'll be a live stream. It'll be dope. A lot of familiar faces. If you're not a familiar face and you just want to pop up during that course of the 4.5 hours, please feel free to hit me up. We'll have you on. So that's that. My last housekeeping thing. I gotta play this outro. So Doughboy, you're good to hop off.
All right, sounds good. I'll catch up with you.
Peace out.
Take it easy, chat.
Peace out, everybody. This is an outro. I'm bad. I should know better the streaming schedule of KOD. I'm not sure if they have a stream tomorrow. I don't know if Jigga Man's on. MJ Stables, if you know my buddy, he's on tomorrow, Thursday night streaming PTE stuff, so check him out. If KOD's on, check them out. And if not, we'll see you guys Friday night, 8 p.m. Let me hit the outro. I like the sound of my own voice. Dab on the haters.